Hello, and welcome to the fourth session of the Tainted Land Shadows of the City. My name is RJ Cresswell, and I'm the Dungeon Master for this game. You know me, let's meet everyone else. Players, please tell everyone who you are and what character you're playing tonight. And let's start with Lewis today.
Hey, my name is Lewis. I'll be playing as Wallace, who's a Hill Dwarf Trickery Cleric.
Alright, Jess.
Hi, I'm Jess, and I will be playing Lothwyn, a high barbarian druid who is from Black Sands and dealing with some emotional feelings right now about being back.
Alright. Shondell.
I am playing Junie, who is a half wood elf fighter, and she's just trying to survive at this point. Literally.
Yeah.
She's
Alright.
not doing too well.
Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm playing Sir Kay, the half-drow paladin, and right now he's just sort of looking forward to dinner and looking forward to not being covered in blood.
Alright, fair enough. And Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I play Toby, the Rock Gnome Warlock.
Alright. Now let's talk about last week. Your characters began in the library after having defeated a would-be assassin of Orcish descent and 3 creatures made of shadow. In the aftermath of the battle, you met the head librarian who sent for the city guard, and you were questioned by the guard, who said you were free to go because your story of being attacked and defeating the assailants was corroborated by several witnesses. But you didn't leave the library immediately. Instead, you began formulating a plan to lure the would-be assassin into a trap at the Silver Pony Inn and Tavern. While you were working on this plan, an elvish man who turned out to be Wynn's father approached the table, and you invited him and Wynn's mother to join you for dinner at the Silver Pony. He accepted the invitation and departed. Wallace saw that Wynn's father was carrying books and managed to lift one of them, and discovered that Wynn's father had been reading about an urban legend known as the Hollow Man of Middlefish. While you were making plans and speaking with Wynn's father, Toby discovered a trail of blood, which you ultimately followed to the Old Import Company, a small and windowless business on the ground floor of a 3-story building. Upon entering, you found an almost empty room and a wiry, mustachioed man in antiquated clothing who claimed to know nothing about the orc you were seeking. After your questioning went nowhere, and Toby noticed that the trail of blood disappeared in the corner, Sir Kay subdued the man with a sleep spell and stowed him in an apartment above the business. Then Junie lifted a trapdoor in the floor, which was quite literally a trap, and she took a crossbow bolt in the shoulder. From there you all entered a small hidden room beneath the business, and you found 4 things that were shaped like people but bearing the faces of rats, and their skin was covered in fur. You also found the Orcish assassin, and you entered combat, sustaining cuts and punctures and bites, but you felled all but one of the rat people, who was entangled in vines and thorns from a spell cast by Wynn. And that is where we pick up tonight. Your party is in a small, stone room beneath the Old Import Company. 1 lantern glows in the corner and it casts light on the corpses of the orc and 2 of the rat creatures. A 3rd rat creature has fallen but has labored breathing, and a 4th is standing, entangled in vines and thorns. The air is stale and damp, and there is a wooden crate sealed by nails. What do you wish to do?
I'm walking straight over to this rat guy that's entangled with all the vines, and I'm pulling at my axe and I'm putting it up to his throat, and I'm just going to say to him, "Listen, pal, all we had to eat in Ironholm during the famine was rats, and I have no problem eating you, so I suggest you start talking."
Would you go ahead and roll an intimidation check on that?
What's my... I've never done intimidation before.
And given the situation, I'm going to say you can probably do it at disadvantage. I mean, not disadvantage, advantage. Pardon me.
Wait, isn't he still in drag? Yeah.
Yes.
Advantage.
Yeah,
Advantage stands.
I forgot all about that.
So did I.
Okay, well that's a 16 with advantage.
16. So as you approach this humanoid kind of rat, you're talking to it. And you can tell it understands you because its eyes go wide. And the kind of Eric's mention of drag kind of threw me there. I forgot what your question was. What did you want him to do?
Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted him to start talking about like how keen the door, because obviously he's down here with the assassin. Told him he needs to start talking, or I'm gonna eat him basically.
All right. So you can tell that he is very unnerved and scared, and he's kind of like looking around at the dead orc behind him and two of his dead compatriots on the ground and a third of them that is alive but barely. And he looks at you and he's like, "What do you want to know?"
How do you know the orcish fellow there? What are you doing down here? What's your job? What's your purpose? Do you know a man named Ragnar?
We were hired to watch him, to shelter him.
Shelter the orc?
Yes,
By who?
to get him out of the city when the time comes.
Time comes for what?
Well, when he's done with his business.
And I'm gonna press the axe like closer up to his neck. You're being too vague, pal. Nah, I'm in quite a good mood today. And I'm gonna fix my hair because I've got like this big kind of like blonde wig on. You've got one last chance. I'm gonna start with your toes.
Please, I'm trying to tell you what I know. We were
Who hired you?
A man. His name was Ragnar.
I'm gonna turn to the rest of the guys. Kind of like the makeup I had probably smeared across my face a bit from the fighting.
He catches me just like dumping my water skin onto a rag and wiping the makeup off my face rapidly and like taking out the fake teeth I was using as a disguise and like pulling my shield back out, and I basically go back to full K in a few, like, probably under a minute because it's just a quick like wipe down.
All right. So Sir Kay is doing that, as Wallace is questioning this kind of rat fellow. I don't know what else to tell you. We were just supposed to shelter him and, again, make sure he gets out of town when he needs to.
Did this Ragnar tell you where he was going?
He kind of looks a little nervously and then looks back at you and is a bit. You can tell he's a bit more nervous of you than anything else at the moment. Yes, he was going to World's End, and that is where we were supposed to make sure the orc got to as well. World's End.
Anything else you think you should tell me?
What do you
I
want to
like
know?
my rat cooked, slow cooked.
All right, again, he's very nervous and begins to stammer a bit. I don't know. What do you need to know?
When was he supposed to meet Ragnar at World's End?
There was no date that we were given. Nothing set by a calendar. He had business to attend to, and he's kind of like gesturing back towards the corner where the orcish man has fallen. He had business to attend to, and when he finished, he was supposed to let us know, and we were going to arrange passage to World's End.
I'm just gonna go and start patting down the dead guy and see if I can find any information.
Okay. You go
Very
over and begin
paladin-like.
doing that. Is there anything else that you're asking him in particular?
Yeah, I'm gonna just. Oh, this is what I'm gonna say and then do. Well, you've been very cooperative, but you do understand that I'm gonna have to make an example of you. You see, I just got stabbed in a library, pal, and I've had a very, very shitty day, and I'm going to be taking it out on you, and I'm not even going to say anything. I'm turning this guy round, and with my axe you're going to see me hack it into the top of his spine and drag it down the skin of the rat's back. I'm then going to peel the skin back, and I'm going to start hacking out his rib cages as I pull his lungs through the spaces in his ribs, and make it like wings, and I'm gonna like nail his hands into like a table or whatever I can, and I'm gonna turn to the rest of them, and I'm just gonna like, wipe the blood from me and start walking out of the room.
All right, so you pause for a second because that is what you would like to do. Now, first of all, he's bound in, kind of like these vines and stuff. So when you tell him that you're going to make an example of him, the first thing that he's going to do is immediately try to free himself from the vines that he's, and as he's, as you're saying that, he, is saying, no, I had nothing to do with that. All right. And he begins ripping the vines that are kind of like binding him. Now, if you want to try to do what you're trying to do, you will need to make a grapple versus him.
That's fine.
And that roll was high enough that hold on just a second.
Technically considered grappled by a vine already, or just a straight roll?
Well, that's what I was saying, is the moment that you say that, he's immediately starting to try to get himself free. He wasn't struggling with that.
Okay.
And I rolled definitely high enough that he frees himself. But I need to check
Natural 20.
Natural 20? Let me get to his stats real quick. Did you have any modifiers to that?
My strength is 0, I just rolled a 20.
Okay, alright, so you've got a straight 20. Okay, alright. So you grab him, and he's bound, and you've got a hold of him, and you're, kind of like beginning to, turn him around and, press him against the wall. Now, that would be your action. Yes.
Can I react in any way?
Well, ultimately what you see Wallace talking about making an example of this kind of rat fellow. The rat guy just kind of like immediately starts tearing at the vines and thorns that are kind of like holding him bound, and he manages to rip himself free. Wallace like immediately kind of like grabs him within his clutches, turns him around, throws him up against the wall, so this face is facing the wall, pressed up against the wall, and he kind of like goes for the axe on his side and lifts it up. Now that would be Wallace's turn. So you could do something.
Can I cast sleep on both of them? I still have a first level spell slot left.
Okay. With sleep, that's a certain amount of hit dice, is that correct?
Yeah, it's 5d8, and then person with the lowest hit points goes down first, and it goes up from there, and it just subtracts from the pool until...
Okay. Roll your 5d8 then. How many hit points you got left, Lewis?
I have 10.
10.
15, 13, 15 and 3 is 18, sorry. 24. Whoop. Lost the die. So I'm at 24, last one is a 2, so 26.
26. So, Lewis, you turn this rat fellow around, throw him against the wall, grab your axe, raise it up, and then you hear Kay behind you saying something.
I just go, yeah, my incantation for this is just, oh there, not today, friend. And I just try to knock them both out.
Alright. And then you feel kind of like this, you feel this calm and peacefulness wash over you, whereas moments before, you had some kind of rage going on within you. And it's just kind of washed over by this serene feeling. Your eyes grow heavy, and you drop the axe from your hand, and you fall to the ground, asleep. Now, as Wallace falls to the ground, this other fellow just kind of like turns around. He doesn't drop when Wallace drops. And, you're crazy! You're all crazy! And he begins kind of like looking around, for an escape route, but you're all kind of like blocking the only way out of here. And he's kind of quite literally like an animal backed into a corner. And he just kind of like bares his teeth and claws and is up against the wall just facing you all, and is kind of like this, doing this sort of like little low hiss and chitter.
I'm just gonna look at him and just say, I just did you a huge favor, and I'm gonna step aside and give him a way out. And I'm just gonna point over my shoulder.
And I'm gonna step in the way and ask you why you're doing what you're doing.
Oh my god. What?
I'm gonna look at her and say, this guy knows nothing, and he got hired to do a job that he knows nothing about.
So
Murdering
he
him
tried
in
to
cold-
kill us.
Murdering him in cold blood down here after he already surrendered isn't the way to go about things. Plus, we're probably going to have guards on us any minute, and I don't want to have to deal with killing a man who has already surrendered, on top of everything else that we have to explain down here. So, and I turn back to the rat folk and I'm going to say, you're going to speak nothing of this, because if you do, I'll lock you back down here with him as your company. And I point at the unconscious Wallace.
All right.
I think that you are making a big mistake. I don't know. I don't trust him. I don't think we should let him go.
As Junie is saying that, he's heard the words that Sir Kay has said, and he's just like, thank you. And he begins to try to run past Junie.
As he's going to answer Junie's statement, I'm just going to be like, then kill him yourself. I'm already doing all I can to try and save him.
Okay.
Just like standing and like making it clear that I'm not going to take the swing. If someone else wants to, they're free to, but I'm not doing shit to this kid.
Out to do that, kid.
Can I... Okay, instead of killing him then, can I knock him unconscious?
You can try to knock him unconscious.
Okay, how would I do that?
You just tell me that you're trying to do subdual damage, and you have to do enough to deplete his hit points. Which, if I do remember correctly, I don't think this rat had been injured at all. I think he had been entangled and ensnared in vines, and no one had kind of messed with him. He just ended up giving up. But Junie could possibly knock it out. She definitely gets an attack of opportunity as he is running by, should she like to take it.
Attack of opportunity, does that mean advantage?
No, you just get an attack roll as he's running past.
Alright, well, I guess I'll go for it. Worst case scenario, I maybe injure him a little more and, I don't know, piss him off. I mean, I don't necessarily want to deliver the death blow, but I don't want to let him go.
All right.
If you're saying you're trying to knock him out, then you won't kill him with the attack.
Right, yeah. You've told me that you don't want to kill him, you just want to try to knock him out.
Non-lethal
Okay.
So,
damage.
Alright. I will roll attack, and then how do I roll for the damage?
you just roll your normal damage. Tell me how you're attacking first. So what do you imagine this goes like as this very panicked sort of like rat fellow is just scurrying past Sir Kay and then past you, trying to make his way, up and out of the trap door that you all had come down into this room from.
So I think from what I remember, I'm pretty close to the exit. I'm right at it, I believe, because I don't think I really moved once I dropped down. So as he scurries by, I'm gonna take my bow and like wrap it under his neck, for lack of a better term, and like try to like.
Oh, you're doing like the face bash from behind?
No. Like I'm trying to grab his neck and like.
Yeah, I get it. You're just trying to put it over him and kind of like pull him back or
Go
something
to
like
sleep.
that. Yeah.
Go to sleep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying
All
to
right.
do.
The first thing you need to do is give me an attack roll. All right.
Okay.
And you won't be using Dex for this. You'll be using your Strength modifier for it.
That's fine. That's fine. I got good strength. Okay, so that was a nat 20.
Okay. All right.
And then what do I use for damage?
I don't exactly know, but let's just call it a D8,
All right.
just because.
That's my usual anyway. And you said strength modifier?
Sure.
So that is 9.
9.
I can-
Okay. All right. So essentially, what happens is once again, this fellow just kind of like is thanking Sir Kay, scurrying past him, trying to scurry past you. You do very much manage to just kind of like as he's running past, you hook your bow around, grab it around his neck, pull him tight to you. You can feel like the extreme pressure that you've got you've got pulling him against your body. And he struggles with it for a bit, but you're not quite grappling him or anything, and you definitely didn't knock him out by that, or you didn't knock the wind out of him enough. And, he just kind of like slips out of it and continues trying to run. And he'll make his way, kind of like over to the wall, beneath the trap door and begin scurrying up. Now, I would imagine that you could probably take one more action against him as he's trying to get out of here. Should you choose?
I think at this point, Wynn's gonna use Thorn Whip to pull him back.
Okay. You make an attack roll. He doesn't make a save. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Make an attack roll.
13.
13? Okay,
Yeah.
that will strike. Now tell me how this Thorn Whip works in terms of how you're trying
Okay.
to apply it right now. Is that an effect that you can do with it?
Yeah, it's a long vine-like whip covered in thorns that lashes out at my command toward a creature in range. I make a melee spell attack. If it hits, the creature takes 1d6 piercing damage, and if the creature is large or smaller, you pull the creature up to 10 feet closer to you.
Okay. All right then. So, Wynn sees what's going on with Junie trying to prevent this creature from leaving the room, and it manages to make it up to the wall. And as it's beginning to scurry up the wall, you lash out with this Thorn Whip. It bites into its flesh. Go ahead and give me the damage on that real quick.
6.
6. 15. Okay. So, Thorn Whips, just kind of like grabs onto its leg. You yank it back 10 feet within the room, which is about halfway across the room. All right. So, we're kind of in an initiative right now. Is there anything that Sir Kay has made it clear that he's not going to intervene in this? Kristen, is there anything Toby would do seeing this?
Nah, he's just kind of witnessing everybody, like, what they're doing. It's kind of a social experiment for him.
Okay.
At first he was going to intervene, but then he's like, I'm going to see how this plays out.
Okay. All right then.
He's very curious.
Gotcha.
How long is Wallace asleep for?
1 minute.
For a minute.
Yeah. So
minute?
this
Oh,
is
that's
this has been about a matter of 6 seconds so far. So, we're going to take it back up to what would be the top of the round. Now, I believe that you no longer have the creature bound with your Thorn Whip, right? That's just kind of like something that happens on your turn, right?
Yeah, I believe it just pulls the creature back towards me, and then it's not wrapped in the whip anymore.
Gotcha. Okay, so you pull it back 10 feet, so it's about 10 feet away from where it was. And it immediately just kind of like runs as fast as it can and begins kind of like scurrying up and out of the trapdoor. And it manages to do that on its turn. That would take us to Shondell. It is actually up and out of this kind of like hidden room beneath the business above.
So where we came in from?
Yes,
essentially.
where you
The, like,
entered,
the
it
big-
kind of
the
like
big open
climbed
room.
out to up there.
No. I'm not gonna chase him. I just essentially just wanted to knock him out so that we could get a head start. Like that's why I didn't want to kill him. I just wanted to knock him out because I don't trust him. But whatever he's gonna do, he's gonna do. So, I mean, I'll look at Wynn and I'll be like, if you want to go after him, make the first step. But I think Junie will be like, and kind of like side eyeing Kay because like now she's like really really angry. but just being like, I think we made a really big mistake not killing this guy, but majority speaks.
I'm just gonna look at her and say, I think it would have been a bigger one to let Wallace make another Vitsirk out of him.
I don't know. I don't have a good feeling. But majority rules.
Okay, so
I go over to the crate and use my greatsword as a crowbar.
okay, so pause on that. I noticed that Christy from my Thursday night game has joined us in chat, and I just wanted to say thank you for joining us, Christy. I also noticed that there's a Moonday 113 in there as well, and they've donated like 100 of those chits or whatever those are. And thank you so very much for that.
Oh,
we
wow.
appreciate you joining us and doing that.
I didn't
So
even see
thanks
that.
for
Famous
coming
guys.
in and hanging out with us tonight.
We had someone donate. We're famous.
Yay.
Not quite, but it's cool
That's
nonetheless.
totally
Thank you. That's how that works, Eric.
Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, thank you both very much for joining us. So, just very quickly, Junie and Sir Kay had that bit of a back and forth, about this. I think this is a mistake. I think it would have been a bigger mistake. Otherwise. Is there anything that Wynn would have tried to do? Because essentially it would have kind of like deferred to her turn as Junie and Sir Kay were beginning to have this conversation. And Junie started off her turn by just basically saying, I'm not going to chase him, but if you want to do something, So would Wynn have done anything?
Yeah. She would not have. I don't see Wynn knowing this area of town and the places that this would have gone to hide very well.
Okay.
So I think she might have taken a couple steps and then that clicked into her head that she wouldn't know where to go once she got outside the building.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Now, with that, Wynn kind of made that decision after she started toward the exit of this room. And then, after Junie and Sir Kay are kind of like talking to one another, Sir Kay just kind of walks over to the crate with a crowbar and just pries open the lid. Like I said, it's kind of like nailed shut. And when he does that, he sees that there are a couple of items in here amongst this straw that's kind of like buffeting, or not buffeting, but padding everything in here. So there's a chest, kind of like an iron banded chest in here. And there is also this wooden box. Now, I say it's wooden, but it's also banded with gold. And it's kind of ornate. It's got these carvings in it. The carvings, they're not images like pictures that you could make out. They're also not script. It just kind of like looks nice. It's a nice decoration carved into the oak. So, what does Sir Kay do upon seeing these?
Could I fit either box in the bag of holding? Like, is the oak
The
box
chest is
smaller?
pretty small, and the box is even smaller than that.
Okay, I'll just stuff them both in the bag of holding for now. We can deal with those back at the end.
Okay. You do that then.
Also, if any traps go off, I totally want the innkeepers to have to deal with it.
Gotcha. Understood. Now, as you're still down in this room, there are two of those kind of rat person corpses down here. There is the orcish would-be assassin who you had slayed also down here. There's a lantern in another corner. Is anyone else doing anything else as Sir Kay is checking this box?
No, it depends if I'm awake or not.
You're almost awake, but not quite.
I'm going to go and see if I can salvage any of my arrows. I think I knew I shot 6.
Okay. You can salvage 5 of them. One
Okay.
kind of struck the stone wall. I do believe you
Yeah.
missed. And so it struck the stone wall and just kind of like splintered against the stone wall.
Okay,
But you can salvage 5 of them.
perfect. I knew at least one. I thought it was actually 2 that had missed,
Okay.
but that works. Okay.
Kristen, after Toby has kind of like watched this social experiment, Sir Kay begins checking this kind of crate over in the corner, and Junie begins going to try to like retrieve arrows that she shot up around the room, pulling them out of bodies, things like that. Would Toby have done anything in particular?
Yeah, he's just gonna like shrug his shoulders and be like, all right, and then like look around the room and see if there's any other like passages. If the shop was the only way that they were able to get down there. He doesn't think that would be the case.
Okay, give me an investigation roll.
Investigation. Oh man, 8.
8.
But I have like +6. Just rolled crappy.
Yeah. All right. So
accurate. Checks out.
Yeah, checks out. Toby is kind of like searching around. As he's searching around and looking for other ways out, doesn't really, come upon anything like that. As he is looking around the room, he notices that the couple of rat creatures that were there, they were both carrying short swords. They both had hand crossbows. He just kind of notices that, there's not a whole lot else to notice that he would have noticed with that roll. So.
Yeah, he's like feeling the bottom of the walls. Uh-huh. So he probably doesn't can only reach so far. And right. Then
so just real quick, so he's walking around like feeling walls.
Yeah.
Bottom fourth, top fourth, or somewhere in between?
What was that? The whole
all right,
beginning.
Tell me 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, or 4/4.
4/4. Go for the
4/4.
Full enchilada.
Okay, all right. He's feeling around the walls. Nothing happens. It's stone. It's cold to the touch. As I mentioned already, it's damp down here. It's damper in some places than other, but the wall is definitely kind of like sweating.
This is a solid structure. It's a little sweaty, but pretty solid.
Yeah. Now, is there anything Wynn would be doing as this is going on?
No, I don't think so. I think she'd just be looking around, like just glancing around, not seriously looking.
Okay. All right, so Wynn is just kind of glancing around. She notices what I said as well earlier, that, these rat creatures were carrying a short sword and a hand crossbow. And as she is kind of like looking at them, there's the one rat creature that I had mentioned was kind of like had this sort of labored breathing, and as she's kind of like looking around there, it's just kind of like and then stops breathing.
Oh.
That happens. And about that time, Wallace wakes up. Wallace, you come to. You're on the ground. This feeling of serenity and calmness had just kind of like washed over you amidst this rage. Your axe is on the ground next to you.
Do I know that a spell has been cast on me? And if so, do I know who's cast it, or do I just know that someone did and I've fallen asleep?
I mean, there's nothing in the text of sleep saying you know that someone cast it on you. You know that immediately before you went out, Sir Kay had put his hand on your shoulder and had, said something to you. I don't remember exactly what it was. And after he touched you, immediately you felt calm.
I'm just going to look around to everyone and be like, please tell me that you did not let him get away.
And
we didn't let him get away.
Dead.
As Junie is pulling an arrow out of one of the bodies, she's gonna like immediately kind of fling it and the blood and all on it to Sir Kay and be like, "Buddy over there, let him go."
These are bigger fools than you look. Do you have any idea? You clearly don't.
I tried to stop him. I tried.
I'm gonna go over to Wallace and I'm gonna pick him up by the scruff of the neck and slam him against the wall. And I'm just gonna look him straight in the eye and I'm gonna say, I'm here to make sure you don't turn out just like Ragnar. Understood? That's why I came to help you. And it's fine to kill a man in combat, but killing him after he's surrendered is an entirely different thing, so take it from someone who knows. And I let him go and I just let him drop to the ground.
Can I cast a
I search
spell
the orc.
at a higher spell slot than the actual level of the spell?
You can use a higher level spell slot to cast a spell. Your text should tell you whether or not it would give you an additional advantage for casting at a higher level.
Okay. Give me a second then.
Because Sir Kay just kind of like walked over to you, immediately pinned you up against the wall, and you're just kind of like standing there, mouth agape for a second, because nothing like this within your party has quite happened so far. And he tells you, you know, I'm here to make sure you don't turn into Ragnar, is essentially what he says. Now, after that, he lets Wallace go and backs away from him.
And I just finish off with, it's different to kill a man after he's surrendered. Take it from someone who knows. And I just...
Okay. I'm just gonna rip like the sort of like the necklace that these are around, and I'm just gonna put them up and hold them and be like, do you see these? Okay.
Yes, and they're not an excuse to go murdering people who surrendered to you. I get it. He killed your friend. Don't go making more Vitsarks out of other people.
That froze for me, for I did not hear any of that. I like started speaking and then all of y'all froze.
I look at him and I'm just like, I understand he killed your friend, but don't go making more Vitsarks out of other people.
Don't talk about him like you know him. It's more than that. This is a man that works for a guy that done this to my friend. And you
Yes,
let him walk.
And if
You
you
let him
killed
walk.
him, would you be any better? No.
Yes. No. It's not about being better. It's about not having people run back. That's what this is about. And you
Yes,
let...
but what's going to have to stop me from putting you down after all this?
Nothing. You think I've got anything to lose? You want to cut me down, then cut me down. You're keeping me alive because you know that I've got good intentions here. My methods may be questionable, but
I
the end of the
just look
day-
at him and I say, this is the first time I have ever questioned your intentions, Wallace. Don't make me do it again.
I find that hard to believe. I hope we don't come to regret this decision. And if we do, be it on your head. And I'm just going to walk past them and both give him a wee hangy at the shoulder. And I'm just going to look to the rest of everyone else who's like not said anything and just like shake my head. And I'm going to like dismiss well, I don't know how long, if the drag stuff would even still be up if I fell asleep, because I don't know if it's concentration or not. But if it was, then I'll just dismiss it. I want to go over to the orc and cast Speak with the Dead.
Alright, so first thing, Disguise Self, I would imagine it's probably concentration. Does anybody else know that for sure?
It is
Yeah.
not, but it only lasts an hour.
Okay,
Yeah, so
and
it
you,
would probably be about time for it to finish anyway.
yeah, you had kind of done that much earlier, I think, back at the library before you all came over here, and yeah, so yeah, it's probably gone away without you dispelling it. So there's that. Now, you said that you want to go over to the orcish assassin in the corner, and you want to cast Speak Dead. Is that correct?
Speak with the
Speak
Dead.
with Dead? Yeah, Speak with the Dead?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's my last third spell slot.
All right. So, tell me what you think that looks like. Now, this figure in the corner...
Wallace is doing this, Toby's gonna go upstairs. Like, I think this is making everyone grumpy. I'm gonna get out of here, and then just say that they are young and still have a lot of growing to do.
I'm a dwarf.
All right.
How old are you?
69.
Of course he is. Toby's a lot older, like double that.
All right. So Toby interjects, talking about how everyone's gotten a little bit grumpy, says that he's going to go upstairs and basically tells you need to grow up a little bit, something along those lines. And he goes upstairs. Now,
Judy's gonna finish collecting the last of her arrows and also go upstairs. I was just waiting for everybody
Judy
to stop talking so I could say
will
that.
go up as well. Is Wynn doing anything in particular?
Wynn will head up as well.
All right. And what about Sir Kay? You're muted.
I only said I was debating anyways. It's fine. I feel like Kay would just kind of lean against a wall, fold his arms, and keep watch, because he does not trust Wallace right now.
Okay. All right. So Wallace goes over to the corner as Sir Kay's leaning against the wall and everyone else is climbing up out of the room. Wallace begins this prayer, or this incantation. How do you think this looks as you kind of like call back this quickness into the body of the orcish assassin now? As you're over there, you've never really gotten a good look at this person. They attacked you in the library. You had never seen them other than that, except for once you got here to this room, and their face had always kind of like been cloaked or otherwise across the room from you. And as you go over there, you can tell that there are several wounds within the body where it had been pierced by Junie's arrows, and she'd kind of like pulled them out of the body. You had also
got my axe from his
Yeah, you had also slung an axe into the man's groin as well. Now, I assume that was probably the same axe that you raised toward.
Oh no, yeah, I would have pulled it out. Yeah, I would have.
Yeah,
pulled
so
it
you would
out
have pulled it out at that point. But this corpse is what I mean to tell you is this corpse is bearing all of these wounds, and it has kind of like bled out from all of these injuries. I can't remember if spells were cast against it or not, but I know it took a few arrows and axe wounds, and that was after having sustaining some damage at the library as well. So this body bears a lot of injury is what I'm trying to say to you. As you're looking at it, you can see it's more of kind of like a masculine type figure. The head is shaved. There's some tusk. You can tell that there are probably some human features within the face. You're not sure if this is kind of like a full-on orc at all or not. Maybe a half-orc. You've seen half-orcs before. But the figure is pretty large and it's pretty tall and kind of lanky. Skinnier than many orcs or peoples of orcish descent that you've seen before. So what do you think it looks like as you're casting this spell to kind of like recall some kind of quickness, not quite the soul, but some kind of quickness back into the body?
So like, you know how like I'm bald obviously, and I've got like all these tattoos like around the side of my, and I've got like a big moth at the back of the head. That moth like kind of comes off, the actual ink comes off of my head, and the moth like flutters round my head and like into the orc's mouth, and it kind of just like his eyes like open, and they're like, when normally I don't know they'd maybe be a different colour, they turn to like almost like reptilian. As it starts, it kind of like has this breath of life quickly put into it.
Okay, all right. So the moth, flies into the orc's mouth, and the orc's body is in kind of like this weird position because it had been doing a handstand at your own command as it died. So it kind of collapsed, and its legs are like up against the wall, and its neck is all bent to the side. Mouth is agape as the moth flies in, and the eyes open up, and there's this reptilian aspect to it. But they're also kind of like dead and milky white as well. Kind of like you just see that bit of reptilian aspect under that. And you hear kind of like a rattle deep within its chest.
I want to know your name and your purpose, and what Ragnar paid you to do. Tell me the truth, and your soul will rest easy.
What makes you think I would tell you? Now, I want to interject something here as you're, sort of meta this for you as well. When you use this spell, Speak with the Dead, if the dead recognizes this person as an enemy, they're under no obligation to reveal anything
That's
at all
fine.
whatsoever. And you are responsible for slaying this figure moments before. So it responds to your query with, what makes you think I would tell you?
Well, if you don't, I'll cut up your body piece by piece, and I'll send it to your family. I'll let you pick what part I send. And if you don't think that I won't find them when I do, it'll be their parts that I'm sending to other members of your family, and even your friends. That includes any kids you might have. I don't really care at this point. So choose. Tell me what I want to know, or I'll cut up everyone you love.
Okay. Why don't you give me an intimidation roll?
Oh dear. 10.
All right. There's this kind of like rattle within the chest of the dead man in front of you. If I loved anyone, I would likely not be here.
Well, yeah. I'm probably not going to get anything out of this guy. How long does Speak with the Dead last for?
I think you have 5 questions.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
check the text of your spell. I was thinking 3 questions, but check. But again, like I said, I do
How
remember
many?
from someone using it before that if this person is your enemy, they're not likely to answer questions.
Yeah, it is 5 questions.
Okay. So you've essentially kind of used 2 of those up. Now you can tell it's not being cooperative, and I don't know whether or not Wallace knew exactly how the spell worked because he'd never really used it before. But you can
I
tell
would
that
say
this man in front of you, this dead man in front of you, has a lot of animosity towards you. Now, beyond that, you could probably guess from the fact that he's an assassin that he's probably not a pleasant person to begin with in the first place. And you just slew him, So,
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it. I'm just gonna dispel the spell, and you're gonna see the moth come back out and like go back onto my head and like return to like a tattoo form. You can see on the back of it there's also like kind of like on the spine of the moth is like a skull, which wasn't there before, and it's like another tattoo's like appeared on the back of my head from like using this greater power that I've never used before.
okay. All right. So the moth returns and it becomes more kind of like this death head moth, kind of thing. So, while that was going on, Junie, Toby, Wynn, you're upstairs in this kind of like windowless wooden room. I think I said it was about 25 by 25 feet or something like that. It's about a square room. There was a desk in here that sort of like kind of wiry fellow was at the desk before Sir Kay put him to sleep. There was also a table sitting in the middle of the room, and the only thing on the table was kind of like this clay, almost kind of like an amphora or something like that. It was this vase. It looked pretty old, like an antique, but as you come into the room, it is missing. The table is still there, but the vase is gone from the table as you come back up into the room. What do your characters do?
What
Yes.
about the I don't know if we actually got his name, but the shopkeep, because I don't actually know what his actual title was, that we locked in his room.
I don't think he introduced himself, and I don't think you asked for his name. So you didn't. You never caught his name, but you know that his
Yeah.
apartment. He did mention that his apartment was above.
Yeah, I believe we locked him in there, but
Yes.
would he be awake at this point? I forget how we actually put him to sleep.
I put
Yeah.
him to sleep with the sleep spell.
Right, and
Okay.
he
And
would
he
have
was
most
tied up.
certainly have awoken
Oh,
by
yeah.
now.
Okay. So I'm assuming we're gonna hear banging. to
Junie
let him
makes that
know.
assumption given that Wallace has come back to consciousness, but she hears nothing coming from the upstairs apartment.
Okay. I'm gonna turn to Toby and Wynn and be like, it's a little quiet considering. And she's just gonna kind of like look up.
Maybe
No.
we should check that.
I don't have everyone's passive perceptions over here, but when if you'll tell me your passive perception, I think it was fairly high.
Yeah. It's a 16 now.
16. What about Toby?
11.
All right, and then Junie.
16 as well.
All right. As Junie is, kind of talking about this fellow that Sir Kay had locked upstairs, and like, should we go check on that? Kind of almost simultaneously, Wynn and Junie are just kind of like sniffing at the air, and you've got sort of like this acrid smell of smoke. Smells like something's burning.
Oh.
I was thinking that.
Like wood burning or.
Very much like wood burning.
Okay.
Told you.
Guys, I think we need to get out of here.
Yeah, Junie's gonna poke her head back down into the cellar and be like, so, fella at the door lit the building on fire. We might want to go right now.
I'm like halfway up the ladder and I'm just like, oh, come on, not again. So I keep going up the ladder a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I would follow suit as well. Make sure I get out there.
Do we
Did
want to check on the guy upstairs?
I don't think he's there anymore, Toby. He wouldn't set the building on fire if he would plan on staying in it, and he had, to
Maybe-
our knowledge, he couldn't
Maybe
get
it
out
was
this
a
way.
rat folk that escaped as well.
My best guess is he set them free and they set this place on fire, knowing we're all down in the cellar. And I'm just gonna look over at Kay and be like,
Is the chair still blocking the door? That would tell us whether or not someone went upstairs.
Yeah.
All right, so there was kind of like this set of stairs that goes up from this room down here, and you went up there. The chair is still very much in front of the door, wedged between the chairs and the door.
I'm just gonna give a smartass look back at Wallace and just say, see? Ratfolk did not go upstairs.
well,
Can we-
the building's still on fire. We should
Yeah, I was gonna
probably get
say,
out of here.
Can we stop being children and exit the building, please, before we all perish?
I'm just gonna walk out.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. You walk out, and you kind of like descend these wooden steps that were in front of the old import company. And as you're walking out into the street, you step onto the cobblestone, and you hear things kind of like crunching beneath your feet. And as you look down at the cobblestone, you see that there's kind of like shards of glass just kind of like all over the storefront, basically, on the ground. You look around behind you, and you see that there's some shattered windows above, and you see smoke pouring out of the second-story apartment of this third-story building.
Well, now we know how Guy got out. Junie's just gonna keep walking down the street, alley, whatever it is.
Okay. All right. You all begin walking away. Now, how do you want to walk away? I mean, you're walking away. Are you running away? Are you... I want to get an image of kind of what's going on with your characters as you're leaving this scene.
Oh, like
Slow
kind of when you're
motion.
raging and you're
Cool guy.
Yeah.
Slow
Judy's
motion
not
walk away from an
exactly-
explosion is what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is
yeah.
it on fire enough that people have noticed?
Yeah, there are
crowd?
definitely people within the street that you hear, like a woman, fire.
I'm just gonna go into like full guardsman mode and just be like, hold up my holy symbol, announce my knighthood, and just be like, right, everyone step back until the guard gets here to put out the fire. It should be perfectly fine until we can start getting a fire brigade going. And I'm just gonna like say that consistently, like a drawl as we're walking. And I'm just gonna look at the group and just say, as you can see, we have a few injured here. I went in and I got them out. They are so far the only injured I've found, so I'm going to take them to a chirurgeon to be healed. And hopefully the guard will be here soon. And I'm just gonna like usher us all away.
Okay. And just to kind of like understand the efficacy on that, why don't you give me a deception roll as you're kind of like spewing this line while walking away from the scene.
Yeah. Dirty 20.
Dirty 20? Okay, all right. So you're saying that Toby's kind of like calmly walking away from this fire, and you're just kind of like talking to other people. As this lady screams fire, other people scream fire, and you see that they kind of very much go into this this kind of like panic state of action. People are moving with purpose. People are like walking over with buckets and beginning to like douse the building, because it wasn't just the store, the apartment, and whatever was above it. This was kind of like a structure where like several apartments and stuff were in there. So people are very much trying to douse the wood, and eventually as you're walking away, you'll see kind of like guards running towards the scene of the fire as well. So
As long as we're within sight line of the fire, I'm just yelling, wounded, coming through, and just like kind of parting the seas of people that are probably going in the opposite direction.
Right. Okay.
And just like letting the blood and the cuts and everything show, just like, yeah, we were in the middle of that, we're good. We're good.
All right. So, as you walk away from this fire, what's your plan now? What are you going to do? You're still within the Black Castle district of the city of Black Sands. Once again, as a reminder to everyone, this is kind of like the nicest area of the city, the area where Black Castle is, where the king resides, where many governmental buildings, temples, things like that are.
What time of day is it? Didn't
That's
you
what I
just come
thought.
from the library?
Yes.
Yeah,
the
it's
library.
still pretty early.
It is earlier in
Okay.
the day.
So like late morning.
Let me try to get the timeline right.
Okay.
I believe it's going to be more afternoon at this point, because you had got up in the morning, you went to a tailor, you got some food, and you went to a food truck, essentially, is what your characters wanted to do. And you did.
Oh, we've got loads of donuts.
Then you went to the library, you were there for a little bit, then you had this bit of a combat. And then after that, you sat there, you did some research on your own, you ran into Wynn's father. So I'm guessing it's probably about 3 o'clock by now that you've been, tangled up with all of this other stuff. If not 4, so. Because for a while there, Sir Kay was like, applying this disguise and stuff as well, that he had used to try to fool the shop owner. So, it's late afternoon, probably 4.
First thing Junie is going to do is ask if she can have some goodies, some food out of the bag of holding, because she's hungry and wounded and wants some comfort food. And then be like, I suggest we just go back to the hotel.
Yes, that would be a very good idea.
And she's like popping pastries in her mouth.
Okay.
Kay agrees, but every time he walks, you hear just like this little squelch from one of his boots, because there's like blood dripping down into it. And he's like, yep.
All right.
Good points, guys.
Yeah, so Junie mentioned she's hungry, and
Oh, wow.
you all had cleared out that gnome's food cart earlier and stored it into the bag of holding. So, Sir Kay just kind of hands over a handful of those little, mini bites, that you had bought from her. And you're kind of snacking on those. Sir Kay is like bleeding out into a boot. Maybe not bleeding out, but bleeding into his boot as you're walking away. And you've all once more decided to go back to the Silver Pony. And it's not very far from here. You make your way, across the cobblestones. In that immediate area, once again, it was bustling with activity as people were trying to extinguish the fire as quickly as possible, doing all that they could for it. Guards running there. And eventually you'll make it back to the Silver Pony, which is, I think, about 8-10 blocks away from where you were. Still very much in the Black Castle district. And you walk inside, much like you walked inside the first time. Only this time not completely covered in mud, but tracking in blood as you're dripping across the floors of this very nice establishment. Looking, many of you, very much busted and injured and worse for wear, in the midst of several more affluent tavern patrons, And as you walk in, just a second. Gotta remember this guy's name. Alright. As you walk in, Swina, who had greeted you the first time, is kind of in there and kind of like behind his little maitre d' kind of like podium or whatever. And you walk into, once again, this fine establishment that has sort of like this equestrian kind of theme to it. And you come in there, and he just looks at you all, and he's like, "You've returned. How lovely. Welcome back to the Silver Pony."
Oh yes, it's been a wonderful day in the neighborhood. We're all going to need baths and some surgeon supplies, if you could.
Junie's gonna do this like sarcastic curtsy thing and just walk right up to her room.
Alright. You walk in, and as you say you're going to need surgeon supplies, Swina will just kind of like hang his head and sigh and look, "I can see you're bleeding all over my floor. I'll send for someone."
Could be snarky, but I think Kay would just be too tired. He just nods and walks past.
Alright.
It's pretty much where Junie's at. So.
Yeah. When just heads up to her room.
Okay.
Toby walks by and is like, just like, "You're the best," and tries to give him a high five, which is a low five for him.
Alright. So, you walk by, and as Toby kind of like puts up his hands, this sort of half-elvish fellow, significantly taller than Toby, but as Toby, like comes up to him in this very kind of odd and alien robe with these constellations on it that seem to move, Toby's kind of like aged face or whatever, he goes up, raises his hand, and the fellow just like immediately starts and jumps back, a bit, and startled by Toby, and you go, "You're the best," and then he just kind of like puts his hand up and forward, and there's this kind of like awkward moment where your hands touch or whatever. And then,
I love it so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Time after time.
All right.
Just imagine we need like a boot the gnome emote now in chat.
All right. Now, very quickly, let's just go one by one, kind of like we did the first time, and we'll check on everybody in their room. And then we're getting close to the time where we sort of normally take our 5-minute break. So we'll go one by one, see what you're doing in your rooms. And then after that, we'll go ahead and take our 5-minute break. And then we will pick up with whatever you all tell me that you're doing after you spend a little bit of time in your room. So we'll go with the same order that we went with earlier, if I can remember it. Wallace.
Real quick though. What time did we say was dinner with Wynn's parents, or did we say a time?
You didn't. You said dinner at the Silver Pony.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
they
I'm gonna
accepted.
assume like
7.
evening.
Yeah.
7. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I needed to know that to say what I was doing.
7 is an assumption. All right. So, Wallace, you've returned to your room at the Silver Pony. Things have gone well or things have gone sideways. Wallace is probably, I'm assuming, in a bit of a... I'm not sure where he is mentally, but you know that Ragnar tried to have you killed. That's been confirmed. What's Wallace doing in his room? What's Wallace thinking? What's going on with Wallace right now?
Yeah, he's pretty frustrated at the moment. He's gonna go all like kind of like that meme, you know, Kyle. They punch walls and drink Monster. He's kind of like that in his room right now. He's gonna first of all kind of like try and just wash himself down from like probably all the soot and the blood, and he's thinking about. He's really worried. He's got quite a lot of anxiety about the fact that they found him so easily, like in a really unsuspecting place like a library. He's thinking about like who he can trust, who he can't. If Harwin was part of this, if he can trust the rest of them after them stopping him from kind of taking measures for them not to get caught. That's all the kind of things that are going through his head right now. As he's kind of like just cleaning himself up, and again, he's sitting talking to these bones, and as time goes on, it's less coherent, more ravings of a madman. You know, things aren't making sense. He's kind of like, and his obsession over worrying about things and his obsession over stalking things, he's starting to kind of lose himself a bit.
Okay. All right. Jess, what's going on with Wynn as she returns to her room?
When Wynn first gets back up to her room, she's probably just gonna sit and relax. The day's been kind of crazy. Then after about 5 or 10 minutes, she'll remember the whole dinner with her father thing, have a bit of a panic attack, and then spend the next few hours frantically making sure she looks presentable.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, so Wynn, kind of goes up there, begins to think about, tries to relax, begins to think about her father, and then ultimately kind of goes into panic mode to be presentable for her parents as they're coming to dinner this evening. Yeah. All right, fair enough. So, okay, you return to your room. You're there for a bit. You've been bleeding. Not long after you're there, there's a knock at your door.
Yes. I just kind of go over to the door and I crack it open slightly.
All right. You crack it open. And as you crack it open, initially you're kind of like looking forward. You see nothing, and you look down, and there's a shorter kind of dwarvish woman who's there. Doesn't have a full-on beard, but got the kind of like the side beard and the chin beard or whatever. Not really a mustache or anything like that. She's got kind of wavy hair. A little older than middle-aged by dwarvish terms. She's wearing a black dress and carrying a satchel. I was told you need help. You're injured. Is this the right room?
This one, and there'll be a few others as well if they so choose. Come in.
All right.
And
she comes in carrying the satchel. You're bleeding. How did this happen?
Just a bit of an unfortunate run-in with some less well-meaning folk in a back alley. You know how it is. Take a shortcut and regret it in the city.
All right, well, you'll need to take your boots off and that bit of armor there if you can pull it off from the rest of it.
Yeah, take some of it off. I'll heal, like, some of the worst stuff with magic. Still have 10 points play on hands left.
Okay.
So I'll just make sure, like, anything that's too separated for her to stitch, I'll bring it a little bit closer together, like that kind of deal.
Okay.
So it'd be kind of a... Would this count as, like, a short rest getting patched up?
You'll probably be in your room for long enough for a short rest, so the getting patched up won't count as a short rest. But anyway, I'll tell you what happens here. So anyway, this dwarvish woman begins, examining you, and she before she starts, she kind of has you sit, on the bed or whatever, and put your leg up, where you're injured, and well, I am Dr. Norgan, and you are?
Cadron Lorna, Knight of the Road.
All right.
Glad to know there was a legitimate doctor around. You don't see them too often in big cities.
Well, there are several of us here. We have an association, I'm not the only one. I'm the closest one. Anyway, I can see a bit of a number on your leg here. It looks like you've had some sort of healing, not natural.
I do have a bit of healing skill, yes, but I was a bit tapped out.
All right, well, I think I can patch you up a bit, at least stop the bleeding. All right, and she kind of takes out her kit and kind of begins cleaning the injury with an astringent that stings, something terribly. Not the worst pain that Sir Kay has ever felt, but entirely not pleasant at all whatsoever. And as she, cleans it with that, it begins to kind of like bubble, the wound does a bit. And, she wipes it off with some clean cloths, and then she begins applying like this salve to the wound and begins bandaging your leg where it's injured. Now, I don't feel like taking the time to look it up, but I believe the healer's kit, if you're proficient in it, heals 1d6. Is that correct? Does anybody know that?
I think so. I don't know off the top of my head, but we can call it 1d6.
I'll look
it up later.
We'll call it 1d6 for right now, because I think that's right. You would heal 5 points of damage from the attention that she's giving you treating your wounds right now. And, she'll talk a bit, with you. And so you say this was a back alley brawl in the streets of Black Sands?
Yes. A few people, it seems they were either looking for someone to pickpocket and just got a bit more than they could chew with me, or they have a thing against knights. Hard to tell. They sort of hit and ran.
Well, I suppose these things happen. I trust you've alerted the guards.
Oh, yes.
We need to make sure that people are safe here,
Oh, yes. It happened blocks away. There's no reason to worry about it. Already alerted them. I had to get back here before I could sort of put myself back together a little bit and heal up.
All right. Well, I'm glad it was nothing more serious than this. You say you have friends, associates who are also injured as well?
Yes. My friend Wallace, he's next door. Got quite a bit wounded by it, actually. Last I saw, I think he got shot by a crossbow bolt. I also think our friend Junie did as well, so if you could take a look at them, she's across the hall, he's next door, I appreciate it. And I will pass them a tip of... How much gold do I have on me? I'll tip them 10 gold.
Alright. Well, you go to hand her 10 gold, and, she tells you, oh, that's way too much. My services are 2 gold pieces.
Consider it a donation for quick work.
Well,
and for the extra work as well.
I appreciate it. And I hope you heal well and stay out of troubles. Please, do.
Oh, I'll be sticking to the main roads from here on out, I believe.
Alright, you do that. Alright. Enjoy your stay. I hope you can enjoy your stay after this.
I'd like to insight check that.
Alright, you can give her an insight. Don't even bother rolling. What I meant for her, you're in an inn within the city of Black Sands. What I meant...
No.
What I meant to come across was enjoy your stay in the city if you can after this,
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just Kay's on high alert. So
okay, alright. Go ahead and
give her a second look.
Go ahead and make an insight roll. See what you got.
Oh, I'm gonna fail this.
By the way, healer's kits stabilize a creature that has 0 hit points, and it gets 10 uses, and it doesn't need to make a check for that.
If you have the feat of knowing how to use a healer's kit, however,
it heals some little bit.
Yeah. I think
I rolled a 5, so I know nothing.
Okay, all right. Well, you're a little bit suspicious. She kind of flubs her words much like I did, and then ends up getting her correct meaning across to you. But yeah, You're a little suspicious. You're not exactly sure why, you know. All right. But you point out Wallace's room, you point out Junie's room, and Wallace, we won't do a whole lot of role play related next to this unless you have questions. The doctor would come to your room, do much the same thing, check out your wounds if you allow her to.
Nah, I'd tell her to go away.
All right. So you tell her to go away. Hold on.
I'd
Give me
I was
just.
kind of
give me-
to the.
I know I
time
was talking
myself.
to you, Lewis, but give me just a second, okay? So
No worries.
if you have the feat, it restores 1d6 plus 4 hit points plus an additional hit points equal to the creature's maximum hit dice. So you would get 9 off the back, and then plus your another 5, right, for being 5th level. So 14 hit points is what you would have recovered from that. Sorry, Lewis, you were trying to say?
Nah, I'd just kind of be like, already like kind of in the middle of dealing with the wind. I'd just be like, sorry, not got time, not paying for any extra services. However, I think one of my friends down the hall would be more in need of your aid, than I am, and I'm just gonna like close the door and just be like,
Okay. All right. She was starting to say something. You closed the door, you know, and then moments later, Junie, you'll get a knock at your door. Now, first of all, we hadn't gotten to you yet. So, what do you think Junie would be doing in her room as she's gone back to kind of like relax for a bit from these battles?
She's definitely getting ready to bathe, and after that, take a nap. That was Junie's plan.
Okay. All right, so Junie's kind of decompressing a little bit, beginning to draw a bath, and then there's a knock at the door.
She's probably like taking off the outer layers of her clothes, like she's wearing like a jacket, cloak type deal, and like like her boots and things like that. So, and then I'm assuming she's going to hear the knock.
Yes, yeah. So she hears the knock. She goes to the door. Same thing. This, shorter dwarvish woman. Your friends sent me here to see about you. You were injured in a fight in the alleyway?
Yeah, we'll go with that story, please.
All right. She'll come in. She's got a fairly decent bedside manner. She speaks with you for a little bit. And then ultimately, as she's kind of like tending to your wounds, you would heal 12 hit points if you were injured that much.
Yeah, I was.
Okay, so you heal at least 12. Is there anything else you would say to her or do in your room afterwards?
No, just probably make like chit chat with her while she's doing her thing, and then when she leaves, take my bath and then go to sleep.
Okay, all right. So after she's been attended to by the doctor, Junie finished drawing her bath, and takes a relaxing bath and takes a nap. All right, Kristen, what's Toby been doing?
He has been concerned about Junie. He's gonna take out his his writing kit, parchment and a pen and everything, or quill, and write down something that he would say to her back at home, and it just says, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Knowledge is carried through people and creatures too.
Okay.
And then he's gonna slip it under her door.
Okay, all right. So yeah, Toby spends a little bit of his time in his room, kind of like worried about Junie. Probably the person that he's closest to, having known her from back in Morton, the two of you living there for a while. And you think, back on conversations that you've had before, and you script this little bit of a note to her, slip it under her door. Is there anything else Toby would have done in his alone time, rest time?
No, probably kicked up on the bed with his shoes still on.
Okay. All right.
and just hung out until dinner.
Okay, all right. So then, you all will spend, a couple of hours in your rooms, relaxing. You will get the benefit of a short rest, so you may roll hit dice to regain any additional hit points that you're down. If you've used spell slots and you're a warlock or something like that, then you get those back, I believe, after your short rest. I'm not sure if anybody else gets their spell slots back. But anything that you might get back from a short rest, you go ahead and regain that. Now, let's go ahead and take a moment, about a 5-minute break, and then we'll meet back, and you can let me know what your characters are doing at that point. All right? So, we will break for 5. So, we've just returned from our 5-minute break. Prior to the break, your characters had kind of picked up play in this secret room beneath this shop, where you had defeated these 4 rat person type creatures and this orcish assassin that you had tracked there. And when we picked up play, Wallace immediately began kind of questioning the one conscious rat person. And after getting answers from him, Wallace intended to send a message, make an example of this rat person for working with one of his enemies. Had intended to basically mutilate him. The rat creature panicked, tried to get away. Wallace threw him against a wall, and almost immediately Sir Kay stepped in once Wallace retrieved his hatchet and raised it to strike this rat creature. And he used a spell to put Wallace to sleep. And it was successful. Wallace kind of had this feeling of calm come over him, dropped to the ground, and immediately Junie kind of stepped in. What are you doing? I'm not sure if this is such a good idea. And the rat creature was kind of panicked in the corner, and Sir Kay made it clear that he didn't agree with killing this creature that had surrendered, and told it to flee. And when Junie expressed her concern about that, he said he wasn't going to step in. She could stop it if he wanted to. So immediately began to run out of the room. Junie attempted to subdue it. Wen tried to help her, but ultimately it was able to climb out of this space and get away. From that point, Toby had kind of looked around this room and not found very much. Sir Kay had found a couple of items stored within a crate. And then Junie and Toby and Wen went back upstairs while Wallace tried to speak with this dead orcish assassin using one of his spells. But that orcish assassin had a lot of animosity towards Wallace and was not very cooperative. So ultimately what happened is Wallace and Sir Kay left the kind of underground space and returned upstairs with the rest of their party after Junie and others had called down saying that the building was on fire. They came out to find that there was smoke. They left the building and determined that whoever it was they put in the apartment upstairs had kind of escaped after setting his apartment on fire for whatever reasons. Perhaps that person had connections with the rat people. No one knows because you did not get to investigate by questioning him even further. You returned to the Silver Pony, had a doctor treat some of you, and ultimately you all rested in your rooms for a while. And that's where we're picking up. You've had a bit of a rest. Now, previously, after running into Wen's parents, you invited them to dinner at the Silver Pony. And you would anticipate that they'll be showing up soon. Now, tell me what your characters are doing, what you're planning to do.
See, before anyone goes out to go down for dinner, I want to go out my room and I want to go outside Sir Kay's room and I want to cast Thaumaturgy to make it seem like there's an earthquake going on, but only in his room.
Okay.
And I want the Thaumaturgy to also have a really annoying high-pitched noise of a baby crying or something, just something really annoying.
Could I Can I add to this with something that Kay was going to be doing after he rested?
What was Kay going to be doing?
So, after Kay takes a bit of a nap, he would sit up, and he's dressed at this point. He's kind of in his like set of clean change of clothes that he doesn't wear beneath his armor, and he would sit down on the bed and pull out what basically is a small urn, and he would just kind of sit there staring at it in his hands for a second, and just kind of shake his head and just say, "It's your fault I actually give a damn now." And then the earthquake would go off and the urn would tumble out of his hands and hit the ground, and the lid would pop off and just a collection of ashes would scatter across the floor.
All right.
So, and like Wallace would hear it going, "Ow!" and like just cursing like no tomorrow.
All right. So yeah, Sir Kay's in his room. He's got this urn within his grasp, and speaks to it. It's your reason I give a damn. Just immediately after that, the room begins to shake. You've probably felt something like this before. You're not entirely. The idea of an earthquake is not entirely foreign to you. So you think that maybe something like that is going on, or it could be this. It could be some kind of something that's a bit more supernatural. You're not really sure. Not sure at all. Actually, shakes out of your hands. The ashes scatter across the floor. And then almost immediately after that, there's this kind of like shaking is finished up by this high-pitched kind of whining noise, not entirely unfamiliar to kind of like the whine from when you were in the streets of Morton as it burned, and you heard the voice within your head, So whine similar to that.
Okay. Christy's back. I was just gonna say we got a message that Toby had frozen, but it's all good.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, so this kind of like rumbling throughout the room is kind of like finished off by this whining sound, and like I said, the whining sound is very similar to what you heard in the streets of Morton when your mind was taken over. It had kind of like been precipitated by this whining noise.
I mean, I imagine Wallace would hear the urn hit the ground. Like, the urn wouldn't shatter. He was just sort of sitting there, like, holding it in his lap, so it's not a huge fall for ceramic. But, like, if the door's not locked, if Wallace opens the door even a little bit, he's just gonna see, like, Kay on the floor, like, scooping what looked like ashes back into a pot and trying to close the lid.
I'm gonna have thaumaturgy. I'm gonna hide behind the wall and swing open and, like, blow the ash all over the room.
I'm gonna get what I can.
All right.
And then I'm just gonna like then act like I've just come out of my room. I'm gonna make a point closing my door. I'm gonna.
Yeah. You'd see just Kay sitting there, and he's probably got a little bit of the ashes on him, and you'd see him just sitting there, like holding the pot, putting a little bit back in.
Having fun in this, pal.
I wouldn't say anything to Wallace. I'd just cap the urn and put it in the bag of holding, and if Wallace has a good enough sight, he might be able to tell what the urn is.
I have a passive perception at 18.
All right.
Up to you, order.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that he's going to be interested in what you've got going on the floor there, trying to like sweep up all these ashes and stuff. So what does he observe by way of the urn?
He would probably see the symbol of the judge on the side, and like it's very clearly wasn't intended to be like a cremation urn, but it was made one, basically. So Wallace probably get the solid idea that he just scattered someone important's ashes across the room. Because like there's enough of it in Kay's hair and like on his clothing that he's like having to dust himself off from it now. It's probably like half gone.
All right.
Wallace will come in and he kind of feels bad, and he's gonna come in and be like, "What happened, man?" And he'll start helping him like pick up ash if he can and put it back in. And he's gonna like ask who whose ashes they are.
Just kind of look at it and just say, just an old man whose family I'm trying to find. It's no big deal. And like, there's kind of like, it's not really a sullen expression on Kay's face, but it's more of a, it's gonna sound weird, but it's like, he looks a little bit defeated. And he just sort of packs the urn away and he just kind of puts it in the bag. And then he goes over to whatever kind of basin there is and like washes off the other ashes and like meticulously cleans his hands and gets it out of his hair. And he just looks over at Wallace and he says, so, Wind's Barrens, huh? This should be interesting.
I took a book off him in the library, and quite interesting what I saw.
Yeah.
Some stuff about urban legend. It was where did I write this down? I can't remember what it's. The Hollow Man of what's the place? Fish something.
It's Middlefish.
Middlefish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kay would finish that sentence like in character because he's kind of familiar with the area, so he knows like the districts, I would think, and that's about it.
Yeah, that I don't know what it is, but found it quite interesting. Yeah, I might play into that and don't know. See if he knows anything more about the shadow things we came across in the library. He's into that sort of stuff.
Maybe. You're good at picking a pocket. Are you good at picking a lock?
Never tried it, but always good.
I'd just be like, well, I found these, and I'd just pull out the two boxes and like set them on the bed. I haven't checked if either of them are locked yet, so I don't know. I'm just gonna like test the iron banded like the larger chest and see if it's locked.
That one is locked, yes.
Yeah, I don't have any like thieves' tools or that, so I wouldn't be able to picklock it.
Is it like a latch, or is it like almost like a padlock style?
No, it has a latch on it, kind of built into it.
Nah, it's probably not gonna work. I'm gonna say, is there a way for me to just like it's banded in iron, it's not a fully iron chest?
No,
right?
it's just banded, like the corners, like wrapped around the corners and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
I mean, you could attempt to break it if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm just gonna slip the longsword into like there'd be a little bit of a gap possibly where the hinges are.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of trying to break the locks, I know that's probably going to be the strongest point. I'm going to see if I can get the latches to give, the hinges to give way.
Okay, so basically, you're using your longsword for leverage. Give me just, let's do this as an athletics check.
Okie dokie.
Let me know what you got.
Hey, 24. Natural 19.
24. Okay, so you kind of like wedge your longsword in there, and then there's a large enough gap that the end of your blade fits in there fairly well, and you're able to just kind of like push it in, leverage it up, and then just the side of it like splinters, and kind of like you're able to just pull the wood away, and then you can pull the top off from there. So you've completely mangled the chest. It's not functional for anything else at all whatsoever. But as you open it, coins spill onto the floor.
Ooh.
Copper, silver, gold, platinum.
Ooh, platinum. Sweet. Do we have an amount on that just so I can jot it down?
Yes. 699 copper.
Okay.
5,142 silver.
Okay.
1,713 gold.
Put the price on my head.
Okay.
87 platinum.
Guys, I think we might have just stolen from a Thieves Guild safe house.
It's okay.
This might be worse than we thought.
This ain't tea, but I'm sipping it.
It's fine.
Put the box in the owner's room.
Wow.
That's Kristen, not Toby.
This is Lewis and Wallace. Let's do that.
He gave Toby a high five, so it's definitely
Kay will
Kristen.
basically just tell Wallace to hold open the bag of holding, and he's gonna like shovel the coins into the bag of holding and just let it hold everything temporarily till we can split it all up, because I'm gonna need to do some serious math. And then I'm gonna look at Wallace and I'm just gonna say, all right, here's the plan. We ditch this chest, we figure out how to open the fancy one, and then take whatever's in the fancy one and hide the empty fancy one in the owner's room.
That sounds like a good idea to me, but this place we were at, this is a ridiculous amount of money we just came up with. I highly doubt that Ragnar had the funds to put that on my life. I think we might have stolen someone's cash here.
Oh, that store was most likely a front for something. So it had to be making money on its own, and I'm assuming they probably stored the money they made off of any other jobs down there, so...
Should we tell the others before or after dinner? Let's get mangoed. This is so much money. We could just like rinse the bar.
I was thinking we might want to try buying the bar.
Do you think we could buy this place for this?
I don't know, how much would it cost to buy the silver pony?
You know, the thought had never crossed to me that you would want to buy the silver pony, so I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that.
More than a couple thousand gold, but
It's
that's
probably
okay.
more than a couple of thousand gold. You have to keep in mind this is nice property within the nicest district of the town.
But how much is 87 platinum worth? How much is one platinum in terms of?
It would be 870
it's 10
gold.
Or 10 gold.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
it's all
worth 10
included
gold
in the
apiece.
But like the amount of silver we got, that's 514 gold alone. So we're sitting at close to like 3,000 gold in that chest.
Right. Okay. Let me check how much gold I have. See if we all chip in.
No. I don't think we'd cap it even if we all chipped in. It's expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt you have enough to buy it, but if you're serious, I can do the math on that and figure out and come back to you. But I don't have a number off the top of my head right now.
Me as a player,
Technically, all we'd need is enough for a down payment. We wouldn't actually need enough
We
for
just get a mortgage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just have to pay it off. Like.
Yeah, you could buy a
we just
mortgage,
need down
possibly.
payment. 10% is usually pretty.
Can we get an overdraft or something in the bank? Get a credit card or something.
Right. So the two of you are talking about what you could possibly do with this, and for some reason you've taken a liking to the Silver Pony. It is a nice place. You mangled that chest, these coins spilled out, and it was a lot. I mean, you know, since you have adventured together, your characters have come into a good bit more gold and coin than they've ever seen in their lives otherwise. This was a substantial amount, and I'm sure you probably do have the conversation of, we might have just, you know, gotten into something that maybe we shouldn't have. You know, this seems like more than just, you know, walking around change that, you know, a couple of people would be carrying or whatever. In addition to that, there is also this other box in there. Now, you didn't tell me whether or not you looked at that, I don't think.
I want to look at it because if there's money in that, then I don't even know what's in this. I want to see if I can try to open it.
All right, so you take a look at that. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's an ornate box. It's made of oaken wood, and it's, instead of banded by iron, it's banded by gold. And it looks real. It's been hammered, and within the box, the surface of the oak, there are these designs that are carved into it. It's not like language, it's not like pictures, it's just these nice kind of like patterns that are carved into it. And the wood is like heavily lacquered. Now, when you're kind of messing around with it, the hinge just immediately gives way. It's not locked at all whatsoever. And as it does, this kind of like figure pops up within it, and it's like this ivory figure of this girl in a dress. And then as you open it up, the figure begins kind of spinning almost as in a dance. And there's this sort of like haunting melody, this song that, you know, rings out from it. Kind of almost like chimes. And it sounds familiar, but you can't quite place the song, neither of you. And both of you have this feeling that it sounds familiar. You just don't know what it is. And within the box, it's kind of got like this padded silken surface in the box type area, and there's like this scarlet covered silk above whatever padding this is. And in the very top of it, as you open it up, there's like this steel mirror placed in there. And on the padded surface are 2 rings. And one of them appears to be silver and gold, and it's kind of like this twisted feather. And the other one appears to be made out of copper or bronze or some kind of metal like that. And there are all of these like animals etched within the surface of it.
Okay.
And you notice that as this figure continues, this ivory figure continues to spin while this sort of haunting song plays.
Just gonna go like poke my head out the door and just kind of yell, "Hey, Toby, you have something you might want to take a look at."
Hello, do you yell?
Loud enough. Like, I put some ice behind it. I don't want to yell because my family is trying to sleep, but...
Just seeing if he would hear you. It's loud enough. I think he just hears his name and then just goes to like ask, did you call me?
Yeah, we found some magic stuff you might want to take a look at.
Yeah.
Just...
What do you have?
I don't know. Just come here. And like...
And the actual objects. I mean, what does it look like?
A pair of rings. Both different, but not a matched set. I'm assuming they're magic because they're kept inside a very fancy box.
It's creepy music.
Yeah, he'll look at the rings. He's not going to touch them. And...
Toby, do you know this song? Kinda sounds like my auntie's alarm, but I don't know.
As you come in, you see the same box that I've described to them, and you know they've got it open to show you the rings, and there's this kind of tiny ivory figure in there affixed to it that's just kind of like slowly rotating, kind of in time to this haunting melody that also sounds familiar to Toby, but Toby can't quite name what the melody is. Sounds like something he's heard probably many times before.
Trying to think like real hard. Can see him thinking. Sounds familiar.
This is weird.
Is the ivory like kind of the same make as that brooch that he found like in the very first game or two? He has a ivory brooch.
Yeah, I mean it is ivory and it looks very similar, but in terms of it being ivory. But this figure is carved much differently than the brooch is, you know. This figure is like a lot more intricate. You know, it looks like a lot of fine craftsmanship and detail went into carving this figure of a girl wearing this kind of like ball gown.
Well, he's
Giving me the fear.
gonna look at the rings first. Are
Okay.
they identical?
No, they're not identical. One of them looks as though it's made with silver and gold, and it's not like a solid circle. It's kind of like one of those rings that like starts at one area and then like twists up, and it's like a feather that twists around the hand, around the finger. The other ring appears to be made of like copper or brass or some kind of like more orangish, kind of like metal, and within the surface of it are kind of like these very simple like etchings of various animals, a rabbit, a fox, things like that, and it just twists all the way around with these etchings.
Okay. He wants to kind of check to see if it relates to any kind of like history or knowledge, or tap into something he might already know.
Arcana's not identified, but you can give me an Arcana roll and tell me what you get on your Arcana roll.
What's that?
I was just saying Arcana is not the same thing as identify, but give me an Arcana roll and let me know what you got.
Well, I was saying like if there was, because he kind of knows a song. If it's like related at all. He also has like artificer's lore, so if it's like a magical item, he can he has like a advantage on checking that history and that intelligence of the.
Oh, okay. All right. So
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess let's start with the ring that looks. Were you doing that just with the box or with the rings?
With the ring.
Okay. So give me a roll, just kind of under history for the one that looks like a feather.
Looks like a feather. Rolling like crap. Just 9 with that huge bonus.
And you did the advantage on it?
I just add twice my proficiency.
Proficiency, okay. All right then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nothing really comes to mind from that. The one that's banded in animals. Give me a roll for that one.
These dice suck. Jeez. 18.
18?
Yeah.
All right. He may, recall some kind of tale related to a heroic figure that might have possessed a ring that was described as similar to this. And, within that particular tale, the hero of the story had kind of been able to sort of like commune with animals or something along those lines. So it sounds familiar. He doesn't know, much more beyond that. He's just kind of like thinking about things that he's heard related to objects that sort of look like this. And then regarding the box, don't even worry about making a roll. There's really nothing in particular that comes to mind. Being that he's a gnome and kind of like interested in, various types of, tools and mechanical objects or whatever, he immediately notes the fine craftsmanship on this, and kind of has an idea of what it may take to, produce something, this fine and beautiful. But doesn't really, the idea of like magic doesn't really come to mind to him. It just looks like a very fine object.
He communicates that with.
Sorry, go ahead, Kristen.
He communicates that with Kay and Wallace. Just says, sorry that he couldn't be more help with it.
On the mention of like being able to talk to animals and stuff, Wallace is just gonna like pick up that ring with animals on it and gonna put it on the finger next to the other ring that he's got. You know, the psychic damage one that he's got.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gonna like kind of protect his hand there.
All right, Eric, you're muted.
Sorry, I was doing math, so I muted myself. I'm just gonna look at Wallace and just be like, wouldn't that be better suited to win if it can talk to animals? I mean, you have trouble talking to people, Wallace.
I want a dog. Guys, I want a dog. I've wanted a dog for ages, and I could actually talk to one. We could find one out on the street or anything, like. But you're right. But I want to at least talk to one dog before I give it to Win. When is Win's birthday? Does anyone know that yet?
We're meeting with the parents. You could ask them.
Oh, what a good idea. I'm gonna ask. Means I don't have to buy anything for her. And if we ever do like a secret Santa or something, then I've already got a present lined up.
I don't even know what he wrote. I'm just...
Well, find your own gift for Win, and I'm just gonna like walk out and go down the stairs.
I'm just gonna look at the other ring and I'm gonna be like, I'll put it on to find out what it is, and if it turns out it'll help out with someone else better, then I'll turn it over. Sound good to you, Toby?
Feel free to put on all the magical items you want.
Kay is just gonna take it and like really eye it suspiciously because he does not understand how magic works, even though he can use it. So he's just gonna be like, very steadily put it on a finger and just pray to all the gods that it doesn't explode.
You'll learn very quickly.
How long does it take to tune to an item? Is it an hour or is it a long rest?
It's like an hour. Or
Yeah, I
something
think
like
you
that.
can do it over a short rest, you know, which you've...
I'll just have it on during dinner and hopefully figure out what it does afterwards.
Yeah. All right, then.
Okay, I'm totally gonna get a dog.
All right. So, while that was going on, when you know that your dinner is impending with your parents, it's kind of growing dark outside. You can hear the sounds of like Toby shouting in the hall. You know, "Were you calling for me?" You know, and you hear some kind of back and forth between Sir Kay and Wallace and Toby and Junie. You hear kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I'm gonna say that like because Junie was napping, it was them calling Toby that woke me up.
Okay.
Or woke Junie up. So yeah.
Yeah. So you both you know, kind of, or Junie wakes up, and then I'm assuming, you know, shortly after you come, you know, out of your rooms, right about the time that, you know, Wallace is kind of like leaving the room, and he was kind of like saying something to everyone within the room. And Wallace, you kind of like step out into the hall, and, you know, Junie and Wynn are there, and you're kind of like all collected in this kind of like smaller space.
I'm hiding my hand. You know that thing like when someone's obviously got something in their hand and they're holding it behind their back.
All right. And the two of
I'm
you.
just gonna like
What do you have there?
nothing. What do you have there?
Where?
Over
found
there, and I'm gonna point over to the other direction.
I'm just gonna look at Winner. I'm just gonna say I found a pair of possibly magic rings. Wallace took one. We don't know what it does, so I'm all in favor of just leaving it on him to see if it explodes. I'm testing out the other one, and then once I find out what this does, I'll probably give it over to one of you if it helps better.
Okay.
There's a rumor that Wallace can help him talk to animals, though. I'm just completely throwing you under the bus now.
Well, don't need a ring to talk to you, and I'm gonna go down the stairs to the bar.
All right. So you head downstairs to the bar. Does everyone else head downstairs as well? Wallace just kind of like, walks off from the group, with the don't need a ring to talk to you comment.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of gesture like ladies first and follow after, I guess.
I'm wearing an apron though.
Now, you head downstairs, and it's as I've described it to you every time, except it's evening now, and you've been down here for dinner before, and you know that it's kind of like a nice affair. Once again, this is a very sort of niche place. It's nice, but the people who come here, a lot of them, as I've mentioned before, kind of like dress as though they were just engaged in some sort of equestrian sporting event or whatever. There seems to be very much this theme with the clientele here, and you can hear them, talking about horses of various breeds and races and things like that. As you're kind of like walking around. Now, I just want to get an idea of how each of you look as you're descending. Now, that you only ordered your tailored clothing this morning, and you know that there's no way that would be done by the end of the day, So, Wallace, how do you think, or Lewis, how do you think Wallace is dressed as he descends the stairs?
I've probably would have taken my armor off, so it was just like the robe. Sort of like these purple vestments on and a flowery apron over it.
Okay, so you are wearing the apron. Gotcha.
I've not taken it off.
All right. Jess, how are you dressing to have dinner with your parents?
Considering when originally packed up with the intention to move and set up a life, she probably had a dress that wouldn't be considered formal or anything by Silver Pony standards, but it's a dress as opposed to pants and a shirt. So she'd be wearing that, and she has meticulously braided and rebraided her hair.
Okay. All right. Sir Kay. Or Eric, how is Sir Kay dressed?
I imagine it's some like very simple breeches and like a cotton shirt. Very, very simple clothing. It's clean and it's nice and it makes do. Most defining features, he's probably wearing a set of like black gloves that he picked up at the tailor's, just like pre-made ones.
Okay.
To go with his newer outfit that's going to be coming. So he's probably wearing those, and then he's got the long sword belted on and his holy symbol around his neck.
Gotcha. All right. Shondell, how's Junie dressed for dinner at the Silver Pony?
Junie, I mean, she would have brought a change of clothes with her, maybe two. They're not going to be anything fancy. She's going to try to make the most of it. Probably just like pants, shirt. I imagine Junie at some point, because she was just like, well, these clothes are trash, probably went over to Wynn's room to be like, do you have something I could borrow that makes me not look like a complete vagrant? I mean, so a belt or something.
I'm sure we would have found something.
So,
all right, so you go
yeah,
over to Wynn's room, and she kind of helps you dress up your outfit as much as you can with what she has.
Yeah, because I mean, Junie's clothes are far from special, and knowing that Wynn was quite nervous and anxious about dinner, shouldn't want to look too ridiculous and out of place and embarrassing for Wynn, so she would be like, I'm doing this for you, please help.
Okay, all right. So you do that, and then finally we come to Kristen and Toby. So what's Toby wearing now?
He's still wearing his robe. Try to probably slick down his hair a little bit, but
Okay. So used a bit of water, slicked his hair back. Still wearing the robe though.
yeah.
But the robe looks remarkably clean, and it is a fancy robe, So it's nice. It's nice.
Maybe
it's
take
clean.
some of the like a pillow case and then try to do some ascot action. Like
The pillowcase be as tall as him, though. Oh, no.
gonna like wrap it around and do like a couple knots to
Yeah.
try to get that going.
Yeah. All right. That sounds good. Why don't you just give me just a D20 roll on that? Just a straight D20 roll, and let me know what you got.
16.
16. All right.
Yeah.
So you all will wind up downstairs. After kind of like Wallace, kind of like not really stormed off from the group, but walked away from the group. Now we know kind of what everyone looks like, but we'll specifically point out that Toby has a bit of material just kind of like right up here, like stuffed within the coat. It doesn't look bad though, but as you're looking at it, you're like, my pillowcases are made out of something that looks like that, and you can kind of tell that even though it doesn't look bad, he's taken a pillowcase from his room and kind of like made some sort of like fancy, ascot type thing that he's tucked within, wrapped around his neck and then tucked within the cloak that he's wearing, so. All right, anyway, everyone sees that. You go downstairs, and when you get down there, I've already, described for you, what the clientele is like. But, when you come down and you will, see the servers that you've noticed there the night before when you were having dinner. And, Swina is obviously still there, kind of being like the manager of this or owner of this place. And so I see you've cleaned up again a bit. Please come in. Will you be having dinner with us, I assume?
Yes, and we'll be having a pair of guests as well.
All right. So it'll be the 5 of you and 2, 3 more. How many more?
2, I believe.
All right. We'll quickly prepare for a table for you. If you'll just wait a moment, and he'll speak to a couple of servers. And much like the night before, they'll have a table thrown together for you. Nice arrangements in terms of silverware and plating and things like that. And
I want to sit next to Wynn's parents. I want to make sure that I'm in the seat next to the...
All right. So there are a couple of seats next to where Wynn is sitting that nobody has seemed to claim, and you just kind of like wait for everybody else to sit down, and you kind of make sure that Wynn is on one side of the couple of seats and you're on the other side of the couple of seats, so you kind of place yourself next to where you think they will be. And you're not down there for too long before Wynn's parents show up, and Wynn will see her parents walk through the door of the Silver Pony. And I've already described Wynn's father, and he doesn't bother changing. He comes in wearing clothing, the same clothing that he was wearing earlier today, which is kind of like this nice sort of like almost academic purple robe that has this kind of like gilded threading into it. And as I mentioned, he's wearing almost kind of like this Tudor style hat, this sort of like flat cap that comes over to the side a bit. And Wynn's mother walks in, and you haven't seen her before, but she's wearing this kind of like black and golden dress that has like these ivory buttons on it, and she's got her hair pulled back. You can tell that it's long, but it's pleated currently. And they just kind of like walk in and look around and almost immediately recognize Wynn, and Wynn's mother's face kind of like lights up, as does her father's face, and they just walk over to the table, and Wynn's mother will embrace Wynn. Laughlin, child, we're so happy you've returned.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to.
Nevertheless, it brings me great joy. And then they will both sit there. And as you're looking at them, you think about back to like all the things that you know about your parents and why you left, and you can kind of see that a lot of the judgment that you have previously experienced regarding your studies and stuff like that, none of that's there right now. They seem to be genuinely relieved that you're kind of like back and you're safe, and you can kind of tell that regardless of any other judgment they may have passed on your choices or lifestyle or what have you, they seem to be happy that you're here and relieved that you're safe. And your mother will tell you as much during conversation, and she'll your father's told me a bit while you're back, and we've heard things about what happened at the library. And you had something to do with that?
Well, it wasn't our fault, but we got wrapped up in it.
I
I'm
understand.
going to interject at this point, and I'm going to be like, am I sitting next to Wynn's mum or dad, by the way?
You're sitting next to the father. The mother, takes the seat
Good.
right next to
Right,
you.
I'm going to put my hand on his knee, and I'm going to be like, honestly, listen. Hi, I'm Wallace, by the way. Wynn is a good girl. It was me, I know you might be shocked to hear this, but it was actually me that got us into a bit of issue, not intentionally, but Wynn had nothing to do with that. She's not in trouble with any authorities or whatever. And I'm gonna, like, kind of with every syllable, I'm kind of like tapping the father's knee.
I'm just
And
gonna
then,
pass
like,
both parents a glass of wine from across the table and just kind of nod. Like, you're gonna need these to deal with him tonight. Kind of nod.
yeah, did we order drinks, or is this like a case of like we've kind of just in this conversation?
You came down to the table, and while we haven't role played like every interaction with servers and stuff like that, I'm sure that prior to Wynn's parents getting here, you probably would have ordered some pitchers of wine for the table. And
Can I make a
bread
point
and
of getting their strongest alcohol?
requesting the strongest alcohol? Sure, you could do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what would that be?
I mean, they will have some distilled spirits there, so you're looking at something kind of like a whiskey.
I want to get like 2 bottles of it for the table.
Okay.
I,
right.
I was about to say a case covering the cost of this dinner. Oh boy, this is gonna hurt.
Yeah. So just as Sir Kay and others are probably like requesting pitchers of wine. Wallace is basically like, we'll have 2 bottles of whiskey as well. And they'll bring those out, and so you'll have nice red wine at the table, a couple of bottles of whiskey. They will have brought out kind of like appetizers and breads and things like that as well.
I'll be like to the dad, being like, no wine tonight. You got to try this stuff. This is a dwarven spirit. Honestly, try it. And I'm gonna slip him over a glass of that, and I'm gonna take the wine away.
I just kind of hide behind my glass.
All right, do me a favor, real quick. Give me a persuasion roll. As you slip away the.
That's fine. I'm proficient in persuasion.
Of course you are.
That's natural 17 plus 18, 19, 21.
All right. So you kind of begin talking with him, put your hand on his knee, and Wynn had nothing to do with that. Look, it was it's kind of my fault, or whatever. And you can see that there's a bit of concern and confusion on his face, and you continue to talk, and you're just kind of like quickly speaking to him. You slip away the wine, you pull over this bottle, pour him a drink, tell him it's a dwarvish spirit, and go ahead, no wine tonight, have this. And, he'll be like, well, I am happy to hear that Lothwin had nothing to do with what happened at the library by way of fault or blame or anything like that. And Well, I am always up for trying something new, so he'll take the glass in his hand and just raise it and say whatever the equivalent of cheers in Elvish is.
Yeah, I'll just be like, skull, and I'll kind of clink.
All right, so you do that, and he's slancha or whatever, and tosses it back, and probably coughs a good deal at being more accustomed to wine and ale and things like that. It's quite good.
Yeah, it is. Do you want another one?
No.
Please.
Please as in please no, or as in
No,
please
please,
yes?
please, and his please, yes. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna pour him and me another drink and be like, we've been traveling. How long would we have known each? How long has it been? Did you say it was a couple months?
By this point, it's probably been a couple or a few months or something like that. I can't remember exactly what we said, but
Yeah.
you've known each other for a little while now. About a quarter of a year.
Look, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name and your lovely wife, but none of that matters. I've known Win and the rest of these guys for a few months, and well, like everything else, there's been some ups and downs and whatnot, but hey, we've gotten through it and we're all safe, and to family reunions and to being alive. And I'll kind of like toast that to the table.
All right, he'll raise it and drink with you as well. Is anybody else at the table drinking to this toast?
Judy's going to raise a glass of water. She's not
Okay.
drinking alcohol, but she will toast with a glass of water as she looks around to everybody else to be like giving us like what the WTF is Wallace doing type look to everybody like. What?
Kay shoots back this distinct look of I know, but I'm just ignoring it.
All
I'm
right.
just like,
Wynn's
Just
got
take
her
it.
face buried in a hand, kind of shaking her head.
All right, so that's going on, and Wynn's father, drinks, as well at this toast that Wallace offers, and he finishes that. Doesn't cough quite as much as he did the first time. I don't think we properly met earlier. I am Teon, and he extends his hand
Yeah.
and looks around at the rest of the table. I'm Teon, and this is my wife, Gallowin. So, Jess, your parents' names are Teon and Gallowin. So,
Okay.
Judy,
Pleasure to meet you both.
Yeah, Judy's gonna kind of like
likewise.
bow, I guess. I don't even know, and be like, "I'm Judy."
All right. And
Pretty
I'm sure
much
there's
exactly
probably
like
a bit
that.
of introductions all around, Now, what I'd like most is, Wynn, is there anything in particular you can think of, or Jess, is there anything in particular you can think of that Wynn would say to her parents over the course of this? Wallace, I think, has made clear that, or Lewis has made clear that Wallace is just going to be kind of throwing him back. And Teon is not quite meeting him drink for drink, but is probably, you see your father and he's probably having more than, you're accustomed to seeing him drink in an evening. So, is there anything that you would be trying to say to your parents as you're having dinner with them?
Pro- Honestly, probably after a while, trying to get her dad to stop drinking the whiskey.
Okay. There's probably a point where you kind of look over, and I'm gonna assume that Wallace is just continuing to talk with him, and kind of drink after drink, and at some point you'll kind of hear him begin to speak in cursive a little bit. He's kind of slurring his words.
Getting cursive.
Yeah. So, wish I could take credit for
Feeling
that,
that.
but I cannot. So,
I'm so sorry, Jess, but Kay this entire time is like nowhere near as bad as Wallace, but he would kind of open things up by saying, um, so you'd probably be pretty proud of your daughter considering she saved my life and pretty much everybody's lives at the table, and also the town of Morton, and just sort of like skim over the worst bits of the story and just say it like really paint Wynn as this figure who has been using the skills she's figured out herself to save lives, and just sort of wingmanning her to her own parents.
right. Yeah, so you begin saying that, and Gallowin, Wynn's mother, is kind of like hanging on these words and sort of like, she's not drinking very much at all. She's had, a glass or two of wine or whatever with dinner as you're eating, and, she seems to be quite fixated on these words. And, yes, Theon told me he spoke with Badges at the Chapel of Tomes earlier, and that Wynn had cast some quite potent spells of some sort, which seems to be a marked improvement from what you were doing when you left Black Sands. So you left, you traveled to Morton, and you began to take up the arcane arts there. Is that what happened, Laughlin?
Well, I don't know if it's so much arcane. It's all kind of just through nature.
She's become quite the healer, actually. And I'll just
She could.
I'll move aside and I'll show like the really old crossbow wound that like Kay was introduced with in the first session, and just like show the scar and just be like, she found me bleeding out of this, passed out on the road, and kept me alive.
She can turn into a wolf too.
I'm gonna start barking.
So Toby chimes in with, she can turn in with a wolf too. Lewis, I didn't hear what you said.
Wallace just starts barking and howling and stuff.
Right. There are several other patrons that are just kind of like put off by this, that are looking over at the table, and there's one kind of older rascal in the corner with having some kind of nice dinner with his wife, and he like chimes in with Lewis as well, or with Wallace as well, and just kind of like, like over in the corner, and you see several empty glasses of wine.
Wait, did he howl back at me?
No, just from across the room, there's like this older gentleman, this older kind of like rascal there with his wife, and he, as you're kind of like barking and howling, you just kind of hear across the room sort of like echoed what you were doing. And you kind of like turn over there, and you see the gentleman's wife kind of like put her hand over his mouth or whatever, and she's just kind of like looking around at everyone else around them. And
I'm gonna whisper to Wynn's dad and be like, I don't know if he was talking to me or his wife, but anyway, does Wynn like getting her belly scratched when she's not a wolf, or is that just when she is a wolf?
Oh my goodness!
you
Oh.
I got nothing. I can't stop this.
I don't got a lot. As you say this, his kind of jovial appearance, I mean, you can see he's taken aback by this statement. And, not that he sobers up, but he gets very serious. And he looks at Wynn, and then looks back at you, and then looks back at Wynn, and, once again back at you, and he's... I should hope you're not scratching my daughter's belly. At any point. Wolf or otherwise.
Okay,
Look at Wynn.
I'm gonna...
relatively sober. and
Talked
will
about
just
this law.
Kind of confirm that, like, no, nothing like that's happened. He's just drunk.
I'm gonna nudge him in the arm and be like, I'm only messing with you.
I'm gonna kind of like look over to Kay or Joby and be like, maybe we should, one of us should switch with Bob?
I'm now gonna say
Switch?
some.
'Cause
Is it Tion or Tian?
Taeon. Like Tae.
I'm gonna be like,
Taeon.
yeah. I'm gonna be like Tion. I only jest. My apologies, dwarvish humour is pretty bad, but I so I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. You into your folklore, urban legends, that kind of stuff?
What are you? Folklore? It's a bit of area of interest of mine. Yes. What are you?
Well,
What are you
actually,
saying?
I will. There's this one time, right? We met a hag, and I'll explain in a minute. But we went to this guy's tomb when I've never seen her fight. So she must get it from you, hey, big guy. And I'm gonna kind of like give him a wee squeeze in his arm, and I'm just gonna go. But you know, I heard of this monster, and I forgot the name again. Middlefish, the Hollow Man of Middlefish. Did you ever hear anything about any of that? You know, I've had a few people around here talk. Always kind of wondered about it. You seem like a smart guy.
You know, I like to fancy myself as such, and it's interesting that you bring it up because I've been doing a bit of research on the Hollow Man.
Oh my god, no way. You've
No,
been doing
seriously.
research? I've been doing research on that as well.
Yes. When I ran into you at the library today, I was very much trying to find some things about the Hollow Man.
Wow. That is amazing. That is like literally why I was at the library. And then we got attacked, and then you came in, and it's like we were born to be best friends. We've got the same interests. What can you tell me about this Hollow Man?
Well, I don't know if Wynn's told you before, but our family is actually from Middlefish. We live there. And it's just a bit of a legend, but recently there have been some disappearances. And people just always kind of seem to chalk up disappearances like this to the Hollow Man. But this time it was kind of corroborated by someone who said that they were almost taken but got away. And what they described seemed remarkably familiar, like descriptions that people had given about the Hollow Man before.
Well, that is very interesting. You, do you ever see this person? Do you ever? Would, I don't know. It's you know what I'm like. I'm quite an inquisitive guy. I just wondered stuff about it where you can maybe find that there a particular reason you have such an interest in this topic.
Well, I mean, it's just like I'm a bit of a researcher, and it just lies within my area of interest. But I know the woman who was making the claim. She runs the bakehouse in Middlefish. It's a lady named Amra Guri. She's a baker. And I don't know her too
Does she
well,
make
but
donuts?
when we visit the bakehouse, I speak with her, and she's always been nice, and I've never really heard anything bad about her before, or have no real reason to question claims like this that she's made.
You know, you are a very interesting guy, and you're very smart. And thank you for sharing that with me. It's really broadened my scopes, and I'm totally gonna go back to the library and read a bit.
Alright, well, you do that. I have a few of the books checked out now, so I'll return them soon. I was hoping I could do something to help. There's 3 other people who've gone missing.
Anyone you know?
I knew one of them. He's a human scribe named Carcass. And there was a gnomish girl.
That's an unfortunate name, considering they got took by a monster.
It's actually spelled Carchis.
Still.
Still pronounced Carcass.
Yep.
A gnomish girl.
Also a gnomish girl. And a goblin cobbler. I only know the scribe, though.
But you don't actually think it's the Hollow Man. I mean, that's just been a story. Like a ghost story.
To be honest with you, when the things we've seen, I used to be the same. I used to be pretty skeptical, but do you not think after, especially what even we've seen in the short time we've known each other, I mean, ghosts are totally real, man.
Yeah, but the Hollow Man's just a story normally used to scare kids.
So
I'm
was
just gonna
Lassie.
lean over to. Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. But
Yeah. And then, as you all are talking to this, Tian has tried to weigh in a couple of times, and, finally when there's a break in the conversation, he'll be like, well, often I would be inclined to agree with you as well, but these stories often have some kernel of truth somewhere. And someone has taken these people, or something has taken these people, and if I had not talked to Badges at the library, I wouldn't have believed stories about shadow monsters as well.
yeah, he's kind of got us on that one.
True.
So, from that point forward, Taeon kind of pushes, the glass away from him. I'm sure Wallace might offer him a bit more, but he doesn't drink anymore. He's kind of like realized, not to mention the fact that Gallowin has kind of like encouraged him to, stop drinking as well. When you've definitely seen your mother kind of like, as he was going to take a drink or whatever, like grab the glass from him and put it down, like sip it a little bit and then put it, down, kind of like further away from him, And, we kind of like went on with some role play, but I do want to say, like when Sir Kay was talking about, things that Laughlin had done, and when Toby chimed in with the fact that, Wind could turn into a wolf and things like that, Wind's mother was, very interested in this. And I'm sure that apart from this whole conversation about the Hollow Man and these other things, there was probably a more minor conversation, with, you all and Wynn's mother as well, kind of you trying to impress Wynn's mother for her and things along those lines.
Does Wynn's mom do that thing where she like basically tries to get reports out of us on Wynn's abilities?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Very much, yeah.
I've not tried to do that like in front of everyone with Wynn's dad. Like if I've ever been talking to Wynn's dad, it's tried to be discreet apart from times where I've included them in conversation. I've been kind of like in his ear all night about things.
Sorry, Lewis, I missed a lot of what you said. What was it again?
All I was saying was when I was talking to Taeon, I wasn't like saying that publicly to the table. Like a lot of the time, I would be in his ear.
Yeah, okay.
Like,
I see what you're saying.
Wallace is
so like I wouldn't want
wrecker.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't want Wynn's mum to hear me ask about like the whole scratching the belly hanger that, because like that would have been bad. Like,
yeah.
I know.
Well, his reaction definitely caught the attention of others at the table. When that happened or whatever. And
Okay,
you made
Fireballs
your
you have not healed.
you made your apologies for that. But yes, very much. Lawflin's mother Gallowen is, kind of like trying to figure out, the extent of Wynn's abilities and things like that. And she's told you both that, or she's told you that both of them, kind of like dabble in the arcane arts and are, a bit of wizards in their own rights or whatever, and, kind of like ultimately, at the end as you're kind of like talking, Gallowen will just kind of like, put her arm around you and, well, I'm happy to hear that you're finding your way in the world and making yourself useful and growing in power, and most of all, you seem happy, child. I hope you are. Will you be staying in Black Sands? Your room is just the way you left it.
I think we'll be staying for a little while anyway. But we're trying to work on something, so I'm not sure I'll be able to stay at home right now.
All right. So, I understand. Is there anything that we could help with?
Actually,
Yeah.
do you know anything about dragons?
I know quite a bit.
I'm gonna in the mention of that, I'm gonna give a look to everyone. You know, like when everyone knows something but someone doesn't, and you give someone a look, being like, "Should we
Yep.
tell them?" That's the look I'm giving everyone right now.
I mean, Ragnar already knows we're here, man.
What do you-
We're not blowing our cover by any means, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
What do you want to
Okay.
know about dragons?
Well, it's more about one in particular and whether or not it might still be alive. We have a bit of a trip to make and we'd prefer to avoid it if we could. I have it written down
Alright.
somewhere, but I can't
She
remember.
kind of like cast a glance towards Lofwin and very concerned look upon her face. Dragons are not meant to be trifled with, dear child. They're powerful and old, some ancient. What business do you have with dragons?
It's not with a dragon as such, to be honest with you, Gallo, and it's more an item that the dragon might be guarding. And you ever heard of the rune hammer?
I can't say it's familiar.
Have you heard of... I have the name written down here, but I can't read my own writing. The Caves of Cat something Inn? That's what I got. That's all I got.
The caves of cat something.
I don't have that committed to memory, but if you hold on, I can pull it up.
It's like my middle syllable is just a
Yeah.
scribble.
Give me just a moment.
Yeah, I write in hieroglyphics as well, man.
I can read all of my notes except this one word on the page, and it's so annoying.
It's the Caves of Cathurin.
Thorin. That was an H, not an M. Okay.
Yeah, so the Caves of Cathurin.
Oops.
And it was Frostfang the Older.
Cool.
And reportedly an ancient white dragon. So, as you ask, have you ever heard of the Caves of Cathurin? And do you know where they are? She'll look and yes, I do believe the Caves of Cathurin are in World's End, on World's End.
We are under the same impression, and we're also under the impression that there might be an artifact of quite historical significance stored within a dragon hoard there. We're attempting to retrieve it.
I mean, I suppose that's entirely not implausible. That said, I would stay away from World's End. Some refer to it as the end of the world.
Actually, we found most of this information in a book called Honest Myths by a fellow named Inkensword. You wouldn't by chance know of where we could find another copy of that, would you? The copy we found was damaged, so to speak, in the library.
Well, there is the library, of course, but there are other libraries and there are bookstores as well.
The pages on this particular location were torn out, unfortunately, so we're trying to find out as much as we can before we have to make the trip.
Well, I am familiar with Inkensword, though not the particular text. If you're looking to acquire a book like that, you could seek out Gauman's Tomes.
Flip 4 pages? Okay.
He deals
cool.
in works of lore of that nature.
I'm gonna kind of nudge Theon and be like, you don't know anything about this, good sir? Lore being quite an interesting, strong point of yourself.
I'm afraid it's more of the interest of my wife. Things like that.
If Hells is so...
But almost
still active-
everyone knows of Inkensword. He's a famous historian.
What about his dragon, Frostfang? Has it ever come up in any of the things you've... Frostfang the Elder?
The name does sound familiar, but I can't quite say I know very much. Beyond its repute as an elder and ancient dragon. And as I've already mentioned, elder and ancient dragons are not things to be trifled with. They are things to be feared and avoided and appeased if one must.
How do you appease an ancient dragon?
I would assume usually by becoming its dinner.
They wouldn't like the taste of me.
Well,
Just
Worship,
shall we?
sacrifice, placation through donation.
well, thank you for that, but perhaps it's best we move on to a bit of a less dour subject, shall we? I'm just gonna usher us into small talk away from that so that things don't get awkward.
Alright, so you begin doing that, and Gelwin will look towards Wynn and, kind of lean over and, child, you must speak to me. Not tonight, but before you leave the town with these people.
Okay. But
That's
what
the second
matter?
time
These people.
That's the second time we've got that line in this exact tavern. God damn it.
I'm drunk enough for this. I'm sorry, Gallowin, but these people?
I don't think we hear this.
Yeah, it was very much a
was that
discreet.
like a whisper? Alright,
it was a
that wasn't
discreet
like just
statement.
out
Yeah.
in... Okay.
Yeah. So, she tells you that. And I'm assuming that you'll continue on to pass the dinner, rather pleasantly, talking about less significant things, That being said, is there any bit of information or anything that anyone is trying to press Laughlin's parents for before the end of dinner?
What was Laughlin like when she was wee?
I'm sure that Laughlin's mother, as well as her father, will probably recount a couple of stories that are a tad bit embarrassing for Wynn. So, I don't have anything for you on that, but they will, And it's cute. It's embarrassing. Wen probably blushes a bit, hangs her head, covers her face, things like that. Now,
Kay would ask very briefly if either of them know the Lorinar family and if there's any members still in town. Just because he's looking for members possibly living in the city at the library as well.
all right.
So, if they could tell him possibly if anybody's around, that'd be great.
All right, and you ask them, and both kind of like almost immediately begin shaking their heads, and Laughlin's mother will speak. I'm afraid we don't. We don't dabble too much in studies of nobility or heraldry or things like that. Not really our forte.
Fair enough.
But yes, Chapel of Tomes would be a good place to start in a search like that. There are entire sections on things like that there.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
So the rest of the dinner will pass, pleasantly. Eric, off stream, we'll talk about the damage that this dinner would,
Yep.
cause.
I'm expecting.
But at the very least, you do have a good bit of coin in your bag of holding right now, so paying for
Sure.
it won't be an issue. We'll just resolve that off stream. But you do have a very nice and pleasant dinner, and I'm sure many of you will speak with Wen's parents and about things beyond what we've done tonight, and you'll walk them out of the tavern. And it's very much night now, and as I've mentioned, it's spring, so it's not too terribly hot, too terribly cold, but it is a cool evening. As you walk out into the streets, some of the buildings have lamps lit on the sides of them. There are many stars in the sky above. The city's not casting off too much light, and you get a good view of the sky. There's a not quite full but large waxing gibbous moon in the sky above you. And as you say farewell to Wen's parents for the evening, you kind of stand around and take in a bit of the night air. And you're out there for minutes, just kind of in quiet. Some of you in a bit of a drunken stupor, some of you in a quiet embarrassed moment, and then some of you just not quite sure what to say, after meeting Wen's parents. And as you're in the streets, you see a lone figure on horseback coming from the opposite direction that Wen's parents had left. And it approaches in the night. No one else is out here, save for you. The figure kind of begins walking past, or the horse begins walking past you, and you notice that it's kind of like slumped over on the horse. Looks a bit odd. And then as it passes, the figure falls from its saddle and kind of first gets caught up a bit in the stirrups of the horse. And then the horse keeps moving, drags it for a bit as it dislodges and lays upon the cobblestone. What do you do?
Gone over, I guess. Would take away the hood to try and reveal its face.
So you go over, you remove the hood from this kind of cloaked figure, and as you do, you can tell that its flesh is it's bloated, pallid, dead-eyed, and there's these lesions on the flesh that have kind of like burst and appeared to be oozing with this substance that's just kind of like draining from the lesions. And as you're looking at it, the figure looks, you think it's kind of like a bit chubby or fat or whatever at first, but as you're studying it a bit more, you see that its flesh is just kind of like bloated. And I think that's a good point for us to end tonight, because this is about the time where we're supposed to end. So you're all kind of standing around this figure that's fallen from its horse and was dragged for a bit bloated and dead and covered in lesions.
Oh man.
And this
Here we
is
go.
Awesome.
this is where we'll pick up next time.
You want Black Plague? This is how you get Black Plague.
Yep.
But this spread it to everybody. I've been touching them.
Yeah, I can almost imagine Wallace just kind of like poking the oozing wounds, tasting it.
Man.
But
you know.
he probably would be like,
Yeah.
I was gonna try and end the night on a nice note too, and then that happened. I'm just gonna go summon a Mastiff for Wallace, just have it show up at his inn door.
I'll be so happy if I can talk to it.
All right.
Be nice.
So let's wrap up there tonight. Now, as usual, before we go, anyone have anything they want to say or plug or anything like that? We'll keep our order going for tonight. And Lewis?
I had a session 0 for that campaign that I'm looking to start. I've currently got 3 players play. If anyone's interested in joining, I've got like 2 spaces available for that. We'll be playing Fridays 8:30 PM Eastern time. Just mail me on Discord or Twitter at DM Nexus if you're interested in getting involved with that.
Awesome. Good luck with that. Hope to see it getting started
Thanks.
soon. Jess?
I would jump on that, except for the fact that I've been accepted to school for September, and now just
Nice.
have to figure out my funding. So,
Alright.
yeah.
Yay.
Cool.
I feel that.
Congratulations.
I feel that.
Student debt.
Yeah.
Oh, second time. Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
no,
I feel
I'm
that.
almost going on like my 5th or 6th, I think, if I have to go back in September. So I feel like
Yeah. All right.
I
Well,
graduate in October.
that's exciting, though. That's still
Yeah.
very exciting.
It is.
It is. All right, Eric.
Yeah, I will be at Gen Con this week, so if anyone watching is going, look for me on the Gen Con floor. I'll be around. I'll be doing a Wicked Caduceus cosplay on Friday of the week, and I just got logos done up for myself, so Eldritch Crow Gaming is kind of semi-official, and you can actually look up what I'm doing on worldangel.com/w/Oraxis, Oraxis, and you'll find some cool setting stuff going on.
Sounds awesome. Have fun at Gen Con. Shundell.
Thank you.
You can find me on Twitter and on Twitch at Shandy Valley. Streaming is kind of sort of regular now that my work schedule is hopefully calming down. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday from about 8 to midnight-ish. And I'm really horrible at it, so it's really hilarious.
Sounds like it'd be
Other
fun to
than
watch.
that, that's my life. And I'm working on a podcast that I don't actually know if it's going to go anywhere, but we'll see. It's literally me just ranting about how horrible people are for an hour. And it's awesome.
All right. Well, if you posted about it on Twitter, I'll definitely go check it out.
I will do that.
All right. Kristen.
Hello. You can find me on the Twitters, the IT Pirate Now, for all the updates. I'll also be at Gen Con. I have buttons and cards that have con cred stats on them, so you can incorporate that into your game and hopefully not get the con cred at Gen Con. I will be running a game Saturday night, Bluebeard's Bride. It's a version of their game, different campaign setting for that Saturday night. If you are interested in playing or want to hang out, just message me. I will also be cosplaying Friday, so you might not recognize me, but I will be Garfield, the fantasy Costco warlock from the Adventure Zone. So if you like that podcast, I'll have all the fantasy Costco coupons to hand out as well. So it's It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Well, that's awesome. A couple of things. I certainly hope that you and Eric both post pictures of your cosplay so that we can see them. And
For sure.
two, next week, I think we are all planning to play again next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And, obviously the reveal next week will be that this figure has fallen victim to Con Crud, having just returned to this world's from this world's equivalent of Gen Con, So
Hopefully
anyway,
it's not foreshadowing for us.
yeah, I hope you two are all
Come back with
well next Monday.
Plague, I'd be very worried.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll pick up where we left off tonight next week. And I am RJ Cresswell. You can find me also on the Twitters at RJ_Cresswell, where I post about D&D, do giveaways, and talk about falling downstairs and things like that. So anyway. I obviously do this stream every Monday night, or at least when we do it on Monday nights from 8 p.m. Eastern to about 11 p.m. Eastern. And then I also have a stream that I do on Thursday nights as well, same time period, just on Thursdays, and that is the Tainted Land Scourge of Anarmore. So anyway, if you joined us in chat tonight, which some of you did, we thoroughly appreciate it. If you watch this on YouTube later, which some of you do, we thoroughly appreciate it. And as I say every single time, I also thoroughly appreciate you all coming and playing here tonight. I had fun. I hope you can say the same. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and wind up here tonight and say good night. And I'll see you all next week. Good night.
Oh. That all.
Good
That
night.
hurts. Good night.